Will be 2 seconds. I'm just going to do an intro. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Lightbringers, a brand new Guild Wars 2 podcast. Each week I will have some epic and amazing guests. This is episode 1, and it is going to be a Guild Wars. It's going to actually be about Guild Wars 1 and its transition, or the players' transition, everyone's transition over to Guild Wars 2. And I have some amazing guests. I'm very, very happy here for the first show. And we're going to talk to them right now. I'm going to show you their faces. You're not going to be able to see their faces if you're on Spotify and whatnot, but you're going to be able to see a link to where you can go to see their faces. And they're epic faces, may I say. I'm going to be really nice and really complimentary all the time. But look at the screen, everyone. Doesn't it look good? I think it looks great.
It does. Well done.
Beautiful.
It wasn't me. It was Vu, our awesome graphics guy. It was not me. But it was
the char is looking right at me. It's scary.
Yeah.
He's like holding you up.
He is. You're literally the light of the bringers. I don't know. I'm not too sure. I think it makes complete sense. So I'm going to introduce you to everyone. Okay, first of all, we have GirlWars. Hello, how are you? Are you well? Are you good?
I'm doing really well. Thank you, Jebro, for having me.
Absolutely no worries. What do you do? Where do you do it? Not generally in life, just like stream and stuff.
I stream Guild Wars on Twitch, but recently I've been playing a lot more Guild Wars 2. So yeah, I'm here to talk about my transition as a veteran Guild Wars player into Guild Wars 2.
Awesome. And you can check out, what time do you normally stream?
Usually the evenings UK time, but no set schedule, so just
like
check me out on
kind of 8 p.m. GMT-ish.
Yeah.
That's about midday Pacific, if you're wondering. I'm going to give all the time zones. I know them all now. I'm living all over the shop. Alex, RPG Alex.
Hey.
How you doing,
Hello.
my friend? What do you do? Where do you do it? How you doing?
I'm
you
good. I am very well. I don't know. Well, it's been a weird kind of few months for me. I've been quite quiet, but I've been streaming Guild Wars 2 for 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
As my main game. We're going to talk about Guild Wars 1 as well as we kind of go through the podcast, I guess. But yeah, so I
hope so.
I stream.
It depends if we get past the intro or not.
We're talking about what tonight?
Carry on.
But yeah, so again, like Guild Wars, I usually stream kind of UK evening times, kind of Monday, Wednesday, Sunday when I can.
Nice.
But yeah, Guild Wars 2, great game. I've been playing it for many years. And yeah, looking forward to.
You can see the billboard advertisement now. Alex RPG, a great game.
Yeah.
This is in the future hologram. AuroraPeachy's like, why did I come on this show?
but yeah, I've so I kind of made the leap from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, several years ago. And I've been knocking around ever since.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you here as well. And then we have the purple-haired AuroraPeachy. That's not her full name.
It is now.
It is now, though, apparently.
It's everywhere.
How are you doing, AuroraPeachy? What are you doing?
good.
What do you do? What do you do?
What do I do? I do
it?
this Twitch thing a lot. And I love Guild Wars 2. I'm a full variety streamer now, but every single Tuesday, without fail, for the past 5.5 years, has been Guild Wars 2. I stream pretty consistently Tuesday to Saturday, 10 to 4 Eastern time, which, do the math for me, Jeb.
Yeah.
It's like 3.
Oh, 3 p.m.
It's like,
3 p.m.
like
UK.
3 to 9 GMT.
3 p.m. GMT. Yeah. 3 p.m. GMT, 7 a.m. Pacific. Ooh, that's early for me.
Ooh,
But
there you go.
you should definitely go and
It
check
is
that out.
early.
Go and check out AuroraPeachy.
But thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. First one. It's the first show. The first Guild Wars 2 show. Ooh, pretty. No, don't unsub. Don't unsub. Don't do that. Not talking to you. Okay, so we're talking about Guild Wars 1. Now, just so people know when they're listening, they're like, Jebro didn't really play Guild Wars 1. No, I didn't. Okay? All right? This is my podcast. I'm allowed to do it. No, basically, I played Guild Wars last year and the year before, probably like 2018, 2019, to get a gist of the game. These guys have. And so I did it in reverse. I transitioned from Guild Wars 2 to Guild Wars 1. But I didn't transition because I don't play anymore. But I wanted to start. So these podcasts are all about kind of chronologically. I'm going to be going through some features every other week. So if you're listening for the first time, hopefully I'm trying to do this every other week when school doesn't kind of destroy my life. And yeah, I just want to talk about loads of different stuff. There's going to be podcasts on dungeons, fractals, raids, some PvP stuff, some World v World stuff, some lore stuff, which I want to get into. And I'm hoping maybe get a dev on at some point. Who knows? You never know.
That's the goal.
That would be a goal. That would be a goal. But otherwise, I'm going to ask you guys about your stories. And I'm going to ask GirlWars first.
So I started.
Well, I mean, I haven't asked you a
Guild
question yet, so you don't know what I'm going to ask you. She's gone. She's like, I want to talk about the game.
She's ready.
It was. I think it was actually going to be that. When did you start playing Guild Wars? Guild Wars.
12 years ago, so September 2007. Best year
Wow.
ever.
Yeah. That was after. So it wasn't launch. Was that launched?
It wasn't exactly on launch, just because I was about 12 years old at the time.
You were 12? Oh my god, I'm so old. Oh my god. Oh, I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm gone already.
It's not worth that anymore, Jeb. We had a good run.
I'm over here. I'll just give a silver spoon out.
She had to average out our ages.
Okay, Boomer.
Hey. I'm a millennial, you know. I'm not a boomer. That's not yet.
We're elder millennials.
That's it. I'm the last year. I'm the first millennial. That's me.
Guys, check out this Zoomer. Check out this Zoomer on the podcast.
Oh god.
So yeah,
I got called a boomer. I've never been called a boomer before. Oh no, I'm deeply upset. Don't take that, stream. Tell her off. GirlWars, go for it. Stop calling me a boomer.
So just a bit of background as well. My brother started playing it before me, and it was something that I'd never really seen before a game like Guild Wars. You know, I was used to kind of like platform games or web browser games. This was like my first real game that I got into, and it basically got me into gaming for the rest of my life. So love Guild Wars. And yeah, been playing it pretty much consistently for 12 years. But the past year I've been more into Guild Wars 2. So.
Wow. Your first entrance into like actual gaming was Guild Wars. That's amazing, and especially coming from England as well. I'm just like, what? And I literally had barely heard of it when I played it. I think I played it for a day when I was younger. I'm not gonna say how old I was, but that's madness. That's actually really awesome. Well done, and that was your brother as well. Well done, brother.
Yeah, my brother has really good taste in games. Clearly.
Wow,
so.
you should really get him to watch this. You just got complimented by your sister. Does that happen a lot? Do people get on with their families? I'm sure they do. I do as well, by the way. I'm just joking. Sorry, Mum. She does listen. She's an avid listener. So, Alex, when did you start playing? Did you play from launch? Did you play Guild Wars?
I didn't play from launch. I actually played from the launch of Factions, which was sort of June, July 2006. So I just started my my third year of university, and I moved into this house with a friend of mine, and he said to me, we should start playing an MMO. And we're like, yeah, all right. And we were too broke to pay for a WoW subscriction, so we.
Is that what happened then? Is that why people played Guild Wars? They were like, yeah, well, I got there for a sub.
Yeah. And so we both picked up factions, and I stuck with it because I started factions, and that was it. I was just away completely from the off, and then 6 months later, like Nightfall came out, and I remember writing my dissertation the night before it was due in, and then minimized underneath it was Nightfall.
Oh Jesus Christ! Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm trying to avoid doing that because I'm doing papers at the moment, and I'm literally like, my summative paper where I've interviewed a psychoanalytic counselor, and then underneath there's Magic the Gathering Arena, and I'm just like, I've got to do my dailies, god damn it, it's 12 a.m. I've got to get the gold.
I just remember like powering through that night, that last night, and just not sleeping, and because I had to do like Zagnor Bastion as well as finish my paper.
So many people can identify with you right now. Oh god.
But yeah, it was so it really was kind of factions that got me hooked, and from that I just kind of just stayed. I was completely hooked on it, and even when I ended up moving to Australia with its legendarily poor internet, even over there, I remember I had to have a wireless dongle plugged into the back of my computer. I had to blue tack it to a very specific point on the wall so I could play.
That's what I had to do with Warhammer Online. I lived in Australia for a year in Melbourne, and I literally had to do that. I literally had to get a flipping dongle thing and not hang it out the window. I was like, why am I hanging out the window? That's not even where the signal is going from. It was just like, it was closer than where I was to where the thing was, because it was like down there.
And so I was trying to play either north with like a 400 millisecond ping. It was just torture.
GirlWars is like, what's a dongle? It's like, what is a wireless? What is all this stuff you're talking about?
But yeah, it was like that CSI episode where they end, like, the big twist in the murder is the fact that he's using Wi-Fi, and this. From like 2000. Anyway, sorry. But yes, so
AuroraPeachy really warned us, didn't she? She did.
But anyway, yeah. So shut up.
GirlWars. You played it.
So yeah, I played a lot of it.
Well done.
We'll just leave that for now.
Okay. Oh dear, this is gonna be great. So AuroraPeachy. I'm actually having a great time. AuroraPeachy is the first one. Give us a break, right? AuroraPeachy. Where did you live in the world, and why did you have to hang your dongle outside?
I have never hanged my dongle outside, first of all.
Okay, fair enough.
But I actually also, my first exposure to Guild Wars 1 was the factions beta weekend. My boyfriend at the time was playing Guild Wars with his friends, and there's a beta weekend and you can sign up, get in and try it, because he wanted to see if I liked it. I actually hated it.
Oh wow, why?
I had never played a game like Guild Wars. I had never played an MMO, and the beta puts you into endgame with all the skills, max level, all the people, and I was overwhelmed. There was too much for me. I couldn't comprehend it. The skill list was so long, and I was just like, no, this is too much. So then I didn't play it until Nightfall came out, and I continued to watch my friends play it, and I was like, oh, let me give this another try. Got all 3 campaigns for Christmas and just binged them and never looked back. I fell completely in love with the game.
So that's the thing about betas, right? Like, alphas and betas can really, like, if you don't know what you're getting into, it can be overwhelming. It can just be like, brain overload. What do I even do?
I was like, I don't understand this, and I don't like it.
Especially Guild Wars, like, because you could obviously, like, multi-classing, which we're going to get into all this stuff later, but, like, there is so much more. I mean, I think Guild Wars is more complicated than Guild Wars 2. I mean, I don't know.
No.
No?
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is another piece of now this is a conversation. Let me just add this to the document as the next question.
No way.
Damn, GirlWars said no way. And called me a boomer. I'm writing this. These guys can tell you. Okay? She called me a boomer. I'm a millennial. Okay? Not that
We're
old.
millennials.
Right. Actually, let's talk about that then. Since girls will call, she didn't call me a boomer. Sorry, I mean she did, but I'm gonna harp on that all day. It's not going away. So I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, why not? This is the thing. I've got like this document that I sent these guys, and it's just really a guide, like a guide. And when things pop up, we're just gonna talk about them. Sometimes it's very chilled. It's very chilled.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is the difficult thing from, like, you're talking about Guild Wars 1? You played Guild Wars 1 originally. Guild Wars 2, you played you started a year ago, and you're talking about the skills and stuff feel more difficult in Guild Wars 2.
So,
why is that?
Yeah, so I mean, Peachy was saying just how in the beta, she was like looking at everything and there was too much and it was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the exact same feeling when I tried Guild Wars 2 at launch as a Guild Wars 1 diehard fan. Like, there was just so much stuff going on, so many different things in your UI to look at. It's not just one experience bar like you kind of have in Guild Wars 1. There's just so much stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, that was overwhelming, and just everything, like anything you could think of, I was just like, this is so different. And I couldn't transition at the time, so I just went back to the game I knew. Obviously, now I wish I'd given it more of a shot, but yeah, there was.
Open up. Go on. Sorry.
There was just hearts, like the skills. I didn't
She doesn't
understand
like
how I could change
either.
skills.
No hearts.
What were utilities?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, just.
One of the things that really threw me about Guild Wars 2 when it launched was the trait screen. I don't think I fully got it until they gave it a first or a second pass. Not the system that we have now, but they changed it.
There were 6 lines. Was it 6 or 5?
Was it? I can't. It was when everyone was talking like Roman numerals about the traits.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked, but it was just so poorly visually represented that I just looked at it and I was just like, I don't.
We love you guys. This is just completely just you know, our feelings about the transitioning and stuff. You know, if we play Guild Wars, if Guild Wars 1 had Roman numerals, you know, Alex would have been fine. Okay. All right, carry on.
But I think certainly one of the things about Guild Wars 1 was that you didn't have to kind of worry about weapon skills, because you were always looking for that Rec 9 kind of statistic on the weapon, weren't you? With the particular kind of stat boosts and that kind of thing.
Rec 9, what does that mean?
So it means you like the requirement to you can basically use any weapon in Guild Wars 1. There's you don't need to meet a certain requirement, but if you do meet that requirement, it will give you a little bit higher damage on your auto attacks. But in Guild Wars 1, auto attacks weren't as much of a thing. Necessity than in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 2, auto attacks are a huge amount of damage. In Guild Wars 1, it was more about your skills that you put on your bar. Very self-explanatory. At the beginning, you'd start with no skills, and then you'd slowly get more and more, which was very just easy to understand. Right. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, it's slightly different. I didn't understand how many skills you would get from one weapon, how many from an offhand. Like, all of this stuff was just stuff that wasn't necessarily explained as a new player, so I felt it was overwhelming. I didn't even know there was a trait system either until
Yeah. That could be like a lot to take on, actually, because, you know, especially when you play a game which has been out for, when you played it last year, it's like 6 years. No, 7. Yeah. I mean, it'd be like 6/7 years, and then you go in and everyone knows everything already, and that everyone knows the builds, and everyone's in trial raids or PvP, and you just get in there and you're like, where do I add an ability? Or like, how do I add this thing compared to Guild Wars? Yeah, I understand that.
Overwhelming.
How about you, Peachy? How was it for you? Like, when you went from like kind of Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, looking at all the abilities and like that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I thought, except for the trait system, which kind of works like the attribute system in Guild Wars 1, that's kind of what it's supposed to be the equivalent to. I mean, I thought it was simpler because I didn't have a list of, 600 skills to pick from. Whatever weapon I was on, those were my first 5 skills. So there was like I don't know, I attached, like mentally, I attached the weapon to those skills. And then you just had the little menus. Like I thought they made it so simple. Like, okay, I have these heal skills. That's it. That's what I have to choose from. And I have these utility skills and this elite skill. I thought it was much simpler, personally. But I also played at launch, so I don't know if that was easier, because I think they've streamlined things for sure over the years. But even at launch, I don't remember being confused about it like I was in Guild Wars 1.
I remember the main thing, because like the game I played before, and chat, you can talk about this, maybe obviously we're doing this live on Twitch at the same time, but if you guys and I don't tend to look at chat much unless we get to the questions later, and we kind of have this conversation among ourselves, and so I'm sorry if you feel left out right now. But I came from, God, what did I come from? Rift, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. Type targeting, which is still Guild Wars 2 is tab targeting. A lot of people say it's like action combat, which it is, but it's still tab targeting as well, because it's still targeted abilities. So it's a mix. Which is similar to Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars, sorry, I'm not going to call it Guild Wars 1, because probably someone will definitely hurt me. Someone will get triggered by that.
What was dead weird for me was the dodge mechanic. That was something that I kind of...
Because it was a stat.
I mean, I still suck at dodging like 8 years later.
Oh, you mean in Guild Wars 2, from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2?
Yeah,
wow, dodging, yeah.
Having to kind of shift your thinking, because I think it was the same in Rift. It was certainly the same in Lord of the Rings Online and Warcraft, where it doesn't matter where you are. Once the dice have been rolled in the background, you either get hit or you don't.
Yeah.
And there wasn't the opportunity to...
I mean, you can move out of AoE. Ground AoE has been a thing for a long time. I mean, you move out of that, but if you're just hitting your 1v1 versus one person who's just directly attacking you, you would have dodge stats and block stats, and so that's what Guild Wars 1 had, rather than having an actual dodge. I mean, you could move out of stuff, couldn't you? Could you move out of
you could move to a point.
To a point.
I can't remember.
Like, as a PvP player, you could dodge if you were skilled enough. You would just have to be able to know how to move against projectiles. So there is a kind of dodge. There's also a thing that if a ranger is trying to use an attack skill on you, but from quite far away, sometimes you can just randomly dodge it just because it's far away in Guild Wars 1. But no, we had no actual dodges as we know it in Guild Wars 2 now. That was a really hard thing for me to deal with in Guild Wars 2 as well. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't many games that did that. I think Terra maybe had a dodge-ish mechanic at the time. I think there was a dodge in... I know that when Guild Wars 2 was in beta, actually games like Secret World actually brought in a dodge just because it was in Guild Wars 2.
Really?
Like, it influenced a lot of games being made at the time. It was awful as well. Like, you could tell they just tacked it in. Like, Secret World is a beautiful story in that game. The game, if you've never played that MMO, it's pretty much dead. But it's still actually up, and like I'm in terms of population, that sounds awful.
They tried to do a Final Fantasy 14, didn't they?
You are ripping on Secret World right now.
I love the game. The Secret World is actually beautiful. It's a wonderful game. The story is amazing. It's a lot better now.
But
absolutely. Like it's just one of those things. But when we say it's dead, it just means it's very low pop. I mean, the game is good. But it's not like it's not a bad game. It's just quiet. I'll say. I won't say dead.
Quiet. Yeah.
Oh God. I did that. It's because I'm a boomer. I'm gonna keep going.
We're all boomers here, Jebro.
But yeah, I'm sorry, Alex. What were you gonna say?
I've forgotten.
Sorry, that's what I do. Wow, what? Okay, I'm the counter to Alex now. You just need to get me on Guild Gab. So Peachy, so just to round up what you guys are saying, so girls are saying she went from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, say roughly last year. There's quite a lot. It's quite a big difference. There's a dodge, there's a trace system kind of laid out for you, which has changed. You've only got 3 lines now compared to launch, which was 5 or 6. Someone in chat might want to just double check that with me because I can't remember. I've still got build videos from back in the day.
Yeah.
Alex is saying you can't dodge. You can dodge. No, you got to dodge. I mean, he's talking about dodge. You got to jump. I mean, Jesus.
Got to jump.
You can jump on top of things for now, rather than doing just slash jump or whatever it was. So you got Alex is talking about like the actual movement and mechanics of that in that kind of respects, and then Peachy is like, it was actually a lot easier because you've kind of got what you're getting. You slap a weapon on, you can do the things with the weapon, and I completely agree with that. I mean, I moved from Guild Wars 2. That's the thing. I went from Guild Wars 2 and tried Guild Wars 1, and I was like, wow, there are so many skills. Why?
Yeah.
I mean,
there are duplicates across the campaigns, like Faction, Nightfall, and Prophecy. There are duplicates at skill vendors. They're just called something a bit different. I mean, there's probably only about 15 of them all in all, but it's still annoying that because I sucked at earning money in Guild Wars 1, and so I'd spend my money on like a duplicate skill. I'd be like, oh man.
Wow.
It was a lot more fun to mix and match the skills, though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Guild Wars 2, I think, is simpler, but Guild Wars 1 was more fun. Like, I remember because you only get 8 skills to take out into the world. That's it, out of this gigantic list. And with cross-classing, you can have even more. So it's what class do I want to cross-class in? And what 8 skills do I want? Do I want to res? Do I not want to res? If I'm a ranger, do I want to take a pet or not? Because that was 1 or 2 of your slots. So that sitting there and doing that decision making, I did that way more and had way more fun with it in Guild Wars 1.
Peachy, do you want to just tell us what like cross-classing is, just in case, because there will be new players that are listening to this and they're interested about Guild Wars, and they might be like, I kind of what these guys are talking about, but maybe I want to go and play it. So what is cross-classing, if you could explain?
In Guild Wars 1, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. I just wanted to add on to that. I went in with the expectation of doing exactly that, Peachy, and that's what exactly confused me. So yeah, please continue.
I don't know. If you were asking her that, I'm sorry.
No, I was asking you. No. She was just she was tacking something on to the end. It's okay. No. You guys, wow, everyone's really polite, and I'm not. So I mean, I am. I have to be. But I mean, yeah.
So when you create your character, you would pick your profession. And then as you play through the campaign, you had the ability through, I think it was a quest line for every other profession that you could then cross-class and use their skills. You were always better at your main class. For example, I was a monk, so I had all the monk skills. Through the attribute system, I was always going to be a better healer, for example, than anyone else who cross-classed in monk and used monk skills. They could do that, but as a primary monk, I would always be the best healer with those monk skills. If I do
you mean you personally, or I was the best. It was.
But so then you could have the list. You had all of your monk skills, and I could cross-class as a paragon. And then have all of the Paragon skills as well. So I could mix on my bar. I could have monk skills and Paragon skills. However I want, I could be a monk Paragon and have all Paragon skills on my bar. I could play the class however I wanted to.
The really kind of interesting thing about it was that it wasn't just you can decide to be, you can choose one class and then you can tack on the other and you can just be something else completely, because there was as we were talking about earlier, each class has 4 or 5 kind of skill pools, and each class has its own like primary stat, which is responsible for things like its total energy pool or its cast time or stuff like that. And the secondary class didn't get that primary stat pool when you selected it as the second class. So like Peachy says, when she was a monk, she could be the best monk there was, but and then
because
be a monk.
Monks had divine favor. That was like their attribute, which made them better healers. Everything they did healed.
Yeah. But absolutely. But if you'd have gone Paragon monk, you wouldn't have got your divine favor, and you would have been a bit of a sucky monk.
It introduced a lot of unique builds, and like as a monk, I could cross-class with a Mesmer, and there was a unique build that I could use to solo the Great Destroyer, for example. And that was like the coolest thing to me because I couldn't do it as a monk, couldn't do it as Mesmer. But if I cross-class the two and combine them with a certain set of skills and a certain set of gear, I could do these amazing things. And that felt really good in Guild Wars 1.
It also led to the introduction of a load of meme builds, which is the only thing that people remember is like 55 HP monk, 100 blades warrior, like healing, mending warrior, like all of these things.
Spiteful spirit necro. Best.
Yeah, wouldn't be possible without cross-classing. And some of them are stupid as fuck, but some of them are so stupid that they actually work. And that's what I loved about Guild Wars.
Damn. Wow.
55 HP monk all day long.
See, I never got to play that. I'm deeply saddened. Well, that's a good description. So you've got that, and then you go to Guild Wars 2, and you ain't cross-classing no more. So that's one thing. I mean, and maybe, you know, as a Guild Wars 2 player, like hearing that when I heard it and going over to Guild Wars 1 to pick the game up, and being like, I can't. I mean, because it doesn't matter. You can. I mean, even if it didn't technically synergize, you could just play whatever the hell you want, I guess. Like, just combine one thing. You could be a necro and a monk, I guess, or you can be a whatever the hell you want. So yeah, and maybe I'll come to you first, like GirlWars, and talk about you know, how does that feel like after playing, especially in PvP, like, you know, oh, she's got sad face. don't do that. You can't see if you're listening to this on Spotify, but she did look very sad then. How did it feel to go from, you know, that kind of choice, and you've still got choice in Guild Wars, so we'll get to that. But like, from that multi-classing perspective to just here's your class now.
Yeah, I have to admit it felt really bad, man. Like it felt it felt as though professions weren't blendable anymore, and so it felt as though things were a bit more rigid. Couple that with the fact that everyone had to survive by themselves, and there wasn't a dedicated healer class. That really kind of threw me off because I was so used to playing with other people as a team and coordinating builds as a team, that the idea that I had to pick a class that was meant to survive by itself was just, it wasn't appealing to me as a Guild Wars 1 player. And I really did enjoy theory crafting, build crafting, things like that from a PvP perspective. So even though it might have seemed simpler, and now I do get it as I play Guild Wars 2 now, it is a lot simpler. It removes a bit of creativity in builds and team crafting, and it didn't necessarily make me want to try all of the classes because I couldn't get an understanding of all of the skills by using them as secondaries, if that makes sense.
So then you would have to, so a lot of what you're talking about in Guild Wars was that you could have the same character and you could just pick up these skills and get a feel for it almost without just making a brand new character. You can still have the look and everything you created on this one individual thing, character, person, thing. Is that bad? I don't know. Someone's going to say something about that. And then I don't know what I do. It's the internet. But yeah, like, yeah, tell us more. That sounds, you know, that sounds upsetting. That sounds sad.
It gives you a good idea of what other classes do when you can swap secondaries, and the power of and the limitations of your class as well as that. But also in Guild Wars 1, I should add, NPCs were also had their own professions, so you would get an understanding of skills from NPCs, because unlike in Guild Wars 2, where NPCs just have general skills, in Guild Wars 1, an NPC would be a warrior, mesmer, elementalist, etc. But yeah, the idea that you couldn't multi-class, it threw me off from the outset. Not to be negative, because now I absolutely love the game, but as a new person in the game,
you're not negative at all. You can talk about your feelings and thoughts about the game without being toxic.
Yeah.
This is not what the podcast is. I'm pretty sure that if anyone was watching this from Arena, they would understand we're just talking about the game, and we all love it in different ways, and we all have our, you know, it's like a relationship, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's more than a relationship.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, that is exactly the truth. Go on, Alex.
I was going to say, I think certainly once heroes came into into Guild Wars 1, that there was that kind of. You're absolutely right. It just exploded the arena for experimentation with different kinds of builds, because you just weren't limited to kind of on a single character and then having to jump over and say, "Oh, I want to check out this build to see how that works." And once heroes came in, part of there was a slight downside was that once like you said, the meme builds became kind of popular. You know there was for the longest time there was the triple necro party, which you could just steamroll everything, which was incredible. But
was that like different builds then, or was it just the same build?
Yeah, it was like a minion master, a spiteful spirit, and was it like a jagged bones necro ritualist that was just. I can't quite remember what all three.
There's death magic, a blood magic, and a
necro ritualist, which was just so. I mean, ritualist on its own was just ungodly. Like ungodly. I would. Oh, it was just demonic. I mean, to be fair, there's an argument for a ritualist that you didn't need to bother with a second class because it was so OP. Like it was glorious. Glorious.
But yeah, the fact that you could, use Necro, which is busted in PvE anyway, and Ritualist at the same time.
Yeah.
That second, like mixing those two, is really cool. And also adding on to the stuff that Peachy and Alex said about the primary attribute that's to only one class, that adds just such a layer of creativity when you come onto secondary professions. Mm-hmm. Some of those really complement. For example, as a Necro, you get something called soul reaping.
Yep.
And every time a creature near you dies, every time a creature near you dies, you'll get energy. Mm-hmm. So Necros with minions can now heal, because once their minion dies, they get energy and they can start healing the team. So that's where the healing kind of Necro comes from. Okay. And I feel like that's inspired Guild Wars 2 to create more of like healing Necros. Like I've seen a lot of that in Guild Wars 2, where it's like. So I find that fascinating.
Oh yeah, you could just bomb the bad guys with Death Nova, couldn't you? And then bad guys died, you just got more.
So that's where they kind of got. So that's where they got Life Force from, I'm guessing, as the transition over to Guild Wars 2, and then the ideas of like if the energy, I guess, was the Life Force.
Well, Necros were notorious healers in PvE, which is crazy because you'd think a dedicated healer class is a monk, so why not use a monk?
So they already had that idea. They already had those kind of ideas in Guild Wars. Like I didn't actually know that. Because that's awesome. Like they've always had these kind of, because you could still do that in Guild Wars if you want to, but you probably wouldn't. There's more defined roles, I think, for some stuff. Actually, that's a good point of conversation. Actually, I'll bring that up in a second. But that's awesome. So there is that. So even though it's the second game which came out later, advanced graphics, everything else, there's an idea, the sense I'm getting is that there is more of an identity for classes in Guild Wars 2 compared to Guild Wars 1, which you could multi-class in, but you could still have, but there were these builds where you still had your kind of an identity of, the 55 HP monk, as you said, the 100 blaze warrior, or because you've all talked about classes which, classes that have two classes, whatever phrase I'm going to make up for that later. I don't know. But there was still some identity, but they've been narrowed down a little bit more in Guild Wars 2, and it's not necessarily specifically just their role of what they do, damage, tank, whatever, because Guild Wars 2, other than trades, you don't really have that. I mean, you have it in PvP and World v World, but everyone can still run forward and do some damage. I don't know. I'm going to be a little bit more clear about that in a minute, because someone's going to say something about that as well. But I just get this idea that they kind of just narrowed down a lot with Guild Wars 2 and simplified it quite a lot.
I mean, the first couple of years of Guild Wars 2 was dead weird, wasn't it? Because you either had Zerker or nothing, or
because everyone did Citadel of Flame. And it was easy. And you could get Zerker.
Citadel of Flame Path 1. But you either had like full Zerker, or
and it
you
looked
had
the best as well.
it didn't look. I mean, like
At launch, the easiest dungeon to do. It was just that there wasn't that much good armor. It looked quite a good.
Like Citadel of, like in 2012 when everyone mail armor or whatever, and then you drop into Queensdale with full Citadel of Flame armor. Like, yeah, you look badass. But it was oh, I completely forgot what I was going to say there. I've lost me. I'm getting old.
I've counted him. I told you.
Okay.
I just got to interrupt him every so often.
I was gonna say the other meta was running Magic Find gear and doing your best efforts to not have the rest of your party find out.
Why? Wait, what?
Because do you not remember like the butthurt about running Magic Find gear? That I mean, back it was what like it got like phased out of the game in when like the new daily system with laurels and all that came in,
Right?
And there was like Magic Find gear, and each piece would give you like plus 3% to Magic Find, and it was tragic back then. Like,
oh, it didn't matter. Is that what you're saying?
It just it didn't matter. But there were also the runes of the pirate as well, and people used to stack them onto their armor, but they'd only put 5 on. Because if you put 6 on, every time you killed a bad guy, there was like a 10% chance a parrot would spawn on your shoulder. And then as soon as people would see the parrot, they realized you were wearing Magic Find armor.
Oh my god, seriously? I did not know that. I knew the gear. I remember the gear, but like, and so you would be identified. You'd be like, Magic Finder. You got a parrot, it's just like a crew of pirates.
Taking all the loot.
Damn, okay. It's amazing.
But it was just not worth it at all.
Wow.
I think that's kind of where Guild Wars 2 tried to bring in, certainly to begin with, where it tried to bring in a little bit more of the complexity that perhaps it had lost in other areas from Guild Wars 1, because Guild Wars 1 kind of armor and weapon setup. But when it first came in, it was relatively straightforward. You got your weapon, and you got your armor, and you got the rune. And it was only when Nightfall came out that you actually started getting inscriptions on weapons as well, and you had to go around and start unlocking them. And the runes kind of functioned in a similar way, but there was from what I remember, there was a much smaller pool of them compared to what we have in Guild Wars 2. Oh, for God's sake, computer.
Oh no.
I'm still here. I'm still in my screen.
All right, okay. You need to just
for so long his screen went to sleep.
You're a gamer. Turn it on to never, dude. Seriously. Jesus.
I work in IT.
What about like you work in IT as well?
I do.
Does he work in IT, everyone? Honestly. Oh, maybe he's just like, oh, he's sensible. He's like, I want to save my money. I'm not actually looking at it. He's actually sensible. He's trying to make his equipment last longer. Oh,
yeah. Just that. So for you girls, how did you find the transition in terms of like between gear coming from one game to the next?
Oh my goodness, it was so tough. Like, and it still is really tough for me, actually. I'm not gonna lie.
Is it worse or is it better or easier?
It gives, in Guild Wars 2, I feel that there's more longevity with gear, more of a grind and more of a satisfaction. And obviously there's a lot more cosmetic stuff that you can play with, and that's really, really fun. In Guild Wars 1, it was very simple. So the way that you would acquire gear in Guild Wars 1 is typically just through the story and through missions. And that's how you would level your character as well. And then in certain outposts that you would unlock as you progress through the story, there would be armor vendors. And they would increase in amount of armor that your class could have. So you'd start off with starter armor. If you get halfway through the story, you can probably get an armor that's probably close to max. Once you finish the story, there'll be the max amount of armor that you can get. And then any armor from thereafter that you want to get would just be cosmetic differences unlocked through factions, Nightfall. Yeah, Fissure of Woe was the top armor. It would all depend on how much it costs and how, like, obviously rare the materials are to craft it. I never really farmed materials myself, but that was something that a lot of my friends did. They'd want to get obsidian, which is the like top most expensive armor on all of their characters. In Guild Wars 2, the gear and ruining it and stuff is very different. I still respect it now that I get it, but we didn't have power, vitality, condition damage, things like that. Armor had inherent boost based on your inherent stats based on your profession, and then you could upgrade it with insignias and runes, but you couldn't really max. There's so much more variation in Guild Wars 2 in terms of what you want your armor to do for you. And you can get multiple sets of armor. You can still do that in Guild Wars 1, but typically you'd stick with like 1 or 2 things and just change the insignias. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, I feel like you could have, 5 different sets of armor for one character. There's a lot to do in Guild Wars 2 with gear.
Damn.
Which is confusing but good for the game.
There's a lot. There is a lot to get your head around. I think that's kind of. I mean, that's kind of the way it is in most MMOs now, right? They add that extra level of. I was gonna say grind, but it's not like Guild Wars 2 is difficult. Other than legendary armor, which is a bit more long-winded. But I mean, there is grinds in Guild Wars 2, but I don't think they're too bad. I actually don't think MMOs nowadays are too bad in terms of grind, like
comparatively, no. I mean, there was I played Lord of the Rings online for a bit, and you get like the journey to go and get like your legendary weapons of the first age or whatever, and you start with like a weapon third age, which is the time when Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit takes place, and then there's the second age, which is the bit before, and then there's the first age, which is all the way back to like the time of Morgoth and all of that. And the grind is just absolutely insane, and it permeates through every aspect of the game. And a lot of MMOs are guilty of this, but it's something that I thought that neither Guild Wars 1 or Guild Wars 2 had. That you had you had like the progress bars. I think we were talking about this before we went live, that you have the progress bars towards titles, but it never, certainly to me, it was a repeating kind of thing that you do, but it never felt like a proper grind compared to some of the other MMOs that were out there at the time.
Okay. There were a lot less games back then. I think that had something to do with it. You had a lot more time to dedicate to one game. Nowadays, we're so, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to try that game, and I want to do that. So grinds don't keep players in games as much, but that's a whole nother topic.
That's a podcast right there. That's a podcast. Yeah, that's something I've wanted to talk about on a podcast for a long time. Our attention, and that's got a lot to do with the way the world is. And now I'm a boomer. Yeah. Now I'm a boomer. Here we go. Oh, back in my day.
Good nowadays.
Can't get off my lawn.
Jebro, I've got a joke.
Oh God, no.
What's your favorite zombie in Left 4 Dead?
What's my favorite zombie in Left 4 Dead?
In Left 4 Dead, it's the boomer.
Oh my God.
Oh,
you're
fired.
That one. It's not even my podcast, and you're fired.
Jesus. Don't fall. Do not fall.
I thought he was going to fall.
I do not have, and this is America, I do not have any insurance for you.
You do not.
You're screwed. Good thing you've got the NHS. Oh God.
Anyway, sorry, back on something.
Oh God. Let's not get emotional about
that. What I would have liked to see in Guild Wars 2, though, this might be a bit controversial, is along with the story, to introduce gear into the story. So like as you're doing your personal story, you get the correct understanding of the gear that you need.
Some ascended stuff, but it's not much. You're right. It's only like a ring or like an amulet or something, right? I mean,
it pretty much leaves you on your own in terms of like what stats you need, what kind of armor you should go for, and things like that. Whereas it's a bit more guided in Guild Wars 1. It's like, you've done this story, here's a vendor, he's giving you something that's like 45 armor. Now the next vendor you meet gives you something that's like 50 armor, so you know that that's like a jump forward. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, it doesn't, you do have like exotic, rare things like that, but it doesn't really guide you as much.
I think what you're saying is that it would be nice to be like, because there is some people in chat saying you can get gear from quests, but there's not much of a guidance towards a build or towards a play style, and where you're like, and I remember leveling up just during base game. Not that I really cared that much, but like thinking about it now in terms of what you're saying is that I could just end up with like healing power and toughness helmet, and then the condition damage power chest piece, and it's like, you can't really feel that powerful because you're doing a bit of everything. But I think it was kind of like it didn't matter, it was just trying to get you through the game. But at the same time, like there's no real guidance in terms of, and you could say, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? For new players, it's absolutely essential that they're guided in some kind of way so they can get attached to it. But some people, for example, Elder Scrolls Online, which is obviously the other game I play a lot of and is an MMORPG, has a shed load of guidance at the beginning of the game. It is like, telling you which abilities to take. And
to be fair, it was questionable when it launched.
What, ESO?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that's another podcast. But this specific system was brought in a lot later. But yeah, in the transition, it was completely different. It was not great. But thankfully things changed. But so some kind of guide would be good. I completely agree. Absolutely agree with you, because I think any MMO now that's been out for longer than 2 or 3 years is massively confusing to new players. I don't think anyone's cracked that yet. I don't think they will.
It could be good to add like a recommended option for like, this is your recommended, but go with what you want, and that would just help so much.
Like condition build, power build, more of a healing orientated, like all-rounder celestial kind of build where you can do a little bit of everything. Absolutely. I think that would be great, like even when you finish a quest or something.
When you level up, now granted, Guild Wars 2 has they renovated the new player experience a while ago. It still didn't introduce what we're talking about. It would be nice if when you level, it does give you gear. Like it does give you every level while you're leveling up. It gives you some stuff. Sometimes it's gear, and I think it should be more obvious when you get to choose between pieces of gear. Like there should be a little tooltip that pops up and says like, hey, by the way, there's a difference between these 3 pieces of gear. I don't know. So I think some players would need that extra guidance. There's
another podcast, new player experience. New player experience. That's going to be one that's going to be coming. That's on the list. Absolutely. It is an important thing. Like that's a good suggestion. A really good suggestion. I need to write that down. But like, I mean, and funnily enough, that I can't remember what it's like in Guild Wars. I mean, it did feel like easy because I remember playing the game and I remember people coming over and just giving me a shed load of gold and then just like these items that I would level up. A boost. I can't remember what it was, and it was just like, oh, okay, I'm good now. Like I can just play the game. I don't know.
In Guild Wars 1, there was less choice. I think Guild Wars 2 gives you so much choice, whereas in Guild Wars 1, it's a lot more linear.
That's interesting. So they've made the more choice for the... So there was less choice in Guild Wars for the armor, and there's more in Guild Wars 2, but there's more multi-class choices in Guild Wars 1 compared to Guild Wars 2. So maybe that was what their thinking was, I guess.
Another thing is that any runes or insignias, which is the stuff you use to upgrade your existing armor, could be bought from a vendor. At least that's what I believe, at least in PvP. And you could upgrade your PvE characters with that vendor's insignia and runes. So you'd have a clear list there. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, I've yet to find a list of all of the like berserkers, harriers, magi, like stuff like that. I don't know where to find that other than the wiki. And there's different ways of getting that stuff. So it was a bit confusing for me.
You get that nice list if you have a legendary weapon, but by that point,
that's right.
And if I'm right, exotic armor, you can't change the stat, I believe, like the inherent stat in it, which is really hard for new players. If that's the exotic gear that they need, it's difficult to know which is the right exotic gear and which are the ones they should trash. Couple that with the fact that you have so much inventory stuff coming into your inventory just from playing the game. You don't know what to trash and what's important, and I think that as a new player is really hard.
Even as an old player, that's fun. That's really difficult. I mean, I don't want to talk about it because it's an emotional
That's the number
thing.
one thing that
What did you trash?
No. Oh, no. It's not even trashing. It's just talking about my inventory. I'm just emotional about that. It's just like, I've still got like tickets and the coins you used from back in the day when you had to vote for Evan Nashblade or the other one.
I want
And
you
I've
to
still
buy
got those.
bank space.
Dude, those are worth something on the trading post.
I want to show people I voted for Evan Nashblade, like in PvP. I mean, you can't do that anymore.
It was fixed. We all know it was fixed.
It was like you could used to get a little thing above your head in PvP. I don't think you can anymore. And then if you'd just be like in World v World or something, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm against you. I want to kill you, but also I respect your decisions." You know, that was kind of like a nice thing. I want to talk about the really obvious thing, and that was really good conversation. I feel like we could talk about that even more, and we might come back to it. But the definition of Guild Wars, and I think there's other definitions out there. Like we worked this out. I'm not sure why GirlWars is going like that, but no, I'm not going to insult the game. It was something like cooperative online role-playing game, and then the difference between going. Is that correct? Would you say that's correct? This is
more or less
with MMORPG elements, and then you two are fully blown MMO. Now, what I'm going to do. Because people might not actually know what you're talking about. Guild Wars 1, you'd assume that it was just a massive MMORPG. Everyone's running around the world, and you know they can see each other. It's not the case. It was actually you started the game. You were very much alone, and you could invite people to be friends or whoever you were interacting with to be in a party. And then the massive, and just in case I am saying this wrong, the only real place you would interact with a lot of people at the same time would be in the main bits between the story and the hubs.
Towns and outposts.
Yeah, or in PvP effectively.
Yeah.
Because you versus them or you're playing with them, and those are the biggest experiences of the true MMO, I guess, experience. And even PvP is still not really. Yeah. People just play PvP anyway.
I mean, I guess kind of like the founding, the original founding, the original ideas of the first game probably plays into the strength of GirlWars a little bit better, because it did originally start off as like a PvP type arena thing, didn't it? And then they started adding PvE little bits and pieces, and then that's kind of how the
Guild Wars 2 is a PvP engine game. They've said this many times that Guild Wars 2 was designed for PvP in terms of combat. Absolutely. That's how they started designing the first game, because it's all built on the same engine, as we have all discussed at various points so far. Yes, I think we can definitely fill that one, and can probably not talk about that too much. Because I think we all know that now. If you don't know what we're talking about, listen for that in a future episode. Which might not be alive.
I always thought that it was great that one of the things that I could never get into, because I'm a little bit rubbish at it, was the strength of Guild Wars 1's PvP scene. The whole idea of but exactly, you start off with like is it like random battles, and then you go to team battles, and then as you kind of go up and up and up, and eventually
GirlWars is like loving this. She's just like the PvP. I'm deeply sad and emotional. I never got involved in this. I'm very sad because I think I would have loved
because
it.
Like eventually, like you'd get in you'd find people in the Hall of Heroes, and I think eventually they added a tool where you can spectate people fighting. And
do you know DJ Wheat, who is the guy, the big Twitch dude, one of the big kahunas, like one of the big DJ Wheat is Twitch,
like the CEO.
of
Twitch.
Well, yeah, he started shoutcasting in Guild Wars.
Jargon, really?
Absolutely, what? He was the Guild Wars 1 shoutcaster.
Really?
Yes. Oh yes.
Beautiful. I didn't know that.
Yeah. As far as I remember, he was started in Guild Wars 1 as a shoutcaster. He flipping loved that game. And it was funny, right? And someone in chat can correct me, but I'm pretty sure. And it was like I heard about Guild Wars, and it had an esports thing, with prize pools. So there were things going on, and I mean, just adding that on as an interesting fact there. But yeah, have funny, right? And now he's like at Twitch doing all the things. I mean, a lot of these casters back in the day, they are doing that stuff because that was, community and all this kind of stuff as well. So, big things started.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, it certainly, even when I was getting really hooked on the story in Guild Wars, there was always this overarching kind of sensation that the PvP either was or had been at some point a very, very major focus, because the way that people, even certain girls, I'm sure you can kind of confirm this, but the way that people talked about PvP in Guild Wars back in like 2006 is it was absolute kind of fanaticism, and
it was esports before esports were a thing, for sure. I mean, the fact that Guild Wars 2 didn't have spectator mode, and I know that there were reasons behind that, but that really upset me because Guild Wars 2 definitely, the combat, is amazing. I think it's a great game, but like the fact that you can't see as a regular peasant that wants to get good at PvP, you can't spectate that, But it was so cool looking at the esports of Guild Wars 1, especially as like a 12-year-old. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, the spectating, the competitiveness of it, yeah.
Absolutely. So it was cool. I mean, going back to what Jebro said, like Guild Wars 1, I don't consider it an MMO. I know that a lot of people do consider it, and it does have MMO aspects.
Yeah, that's important.
I see it more as a strategy game that you can play with friends. A lot of it's hidden behind instance group content. And, I just don't see the grind in Guild Wars 1. The grind is whatever you make it to be. And you can spend years in that game without really grinding for anything and just having fun. Guild Wars 2 I do see as more grindy, but it's a lot less grindy than other games that you've talked about. So...
Interesting. So there you go. Girl said it. She didn't consider it a true MMO. I mean, an MMORPG. Sorry. And and the game is described that way in many places. And how was it for you, Peachy? We're going from like this Guild Wars experience, this, what did I say it was, cooperative online role playing game, to like fully blown MMORPG. You get in there day one, Guild Wars 2. I mean, you played beta, I assume, for Guild Wars 2?
Yeah, I played beta.
And then all of a sudden, there's this different. Like, what was do you remember your reaction to that? Like, what the change was, what the difference was? Do you remember?
I was really impressed with, and to this day, the dynamic event system. When in Guild Wars 1, I don't consider it a true MMO. I would agree, it's a cooperative online RPG. Because anytime you went out to battle monsters, do missions, do quests, any of that, you were put into an instance. You could go into that instance with friends that you would meet in the town, and you could get together in town and see each other and, party up and talk and everything. But anytime you left, it was an instance. You would never, it was impossible to just run across a random player fighting an enemy in Guild Wars 1.
Or rub the ground randomly around them.
Right. So you never got to see anybody else fight unless you partied up with them beforehand. Whereas Guild Wars 2, I remember being in Queensdale and just seeing other players fighting monsters. It was like, wow, this is so cool. And week 1, I come across Shadow Behemoth, and remembering doing the first world boss ever, and everybody's excited and it's new and they've never experienced this kind of thing in Guild Wars 2 before, or in Guild Wars, the franchise before, and people are like role playing, like, take down the demon, and they're shouting, and it was this community experience. You got to group up with people for these epic events without having to, okay, let's formulate a party, let me find my friends, are they available, should I find some new friends? You didn't have to go through with that. You could just go out into the world, and there are friends all around you that are doing the same content. To this day, I love that about Guild Wars 2 and about MMOs in general.
It's beautiful.
I know. The weird thing, I know exactly what you mean. That the first time I saw original Tequatl, the first time I saw the Shadow Behemoth, and people were talking about, oh my god, there's this thing in the swamp, you've got to come see it. And then I turned up to the swamp, and I remember just like hanging around for an hour and a half just to see the thing again that people have been talking about.
Yeah.
It kind of blew my mind. But on the flip side, I remember the first time that I ever killed Rotwing. GirlWars, have you must have killed Rotwing a couple of times.
I'm not a PvE junkie.
Oh
I'm more
my
of a...
god.
Is this going to link to what we're talking about, Alex?
That was a close.
Yeah.
This is going to link to what we're talking about. Okay.
So Rotwing there's this out in the middle of nowhere. It's sort of as you run from like Lion's Arch towards Temple of the Ages. There's I think it's in that kind of direction anyway. There's this very, very kind of small instanced map where there's this massive, I guess it's the equivalent of a world boss, and it's this bone dragon called Rotwing, and he's got like a whole bunch of like skeleton dudes, and like you go out there, what with the death penalty thing as well. So every time you died, which was annoying, but
It was annoying.
it kind of made sense mechanically that you had like one chance to kill this dragon. And it was, as someone said, it's easily soloable now, but back in like 2006, 2007, it was solid because you didn't have heroes and you didn't have all of these OP builds and all that. And it was just like the kind of feeling and experience that I had when World Boss and Guild Wars 2 for the same time. It's very much like seeing Rotwing for the first time.
Okay.
And it was epic because Rotwing would also drop this he dropped this bow, this unique bow that only he would have, and people would kind of go out and they'd farm him for the bow. And do you remember when I think it was like Final Rest leaked as being in the loot table for the Behemoth? And this was before it was like it's like 10 gold on the trading post now. But back when someone data mined the Final Rest staff skin, it's the very scythe looking thing. And,
that was worth loads of gold, like 1,000 plus back in the day.
And suddenly there was that once. I guess it's kind of weird because we were talking about grind earlier, that it becomes an incentive for people to do this boss again. But then there was suddenly like that really kind of great kind of coming together of people. People were desperate to get.
It's completely different.
Yeah, exactly. But I still got that kind of same experience, or that same kind of feeling, or that same kind of experience with people. It's like, yeah, we want to go and get this thing that's never going to drop, but we're going to try anyway.
So you're talking about like even though as an MMORPG with Guild Wars 2 and there's more of the cooperative kind of RPG elements of the first game, those still kind of special moments were kind of were replicated by ArenaNet in some kind of way. I think so. Yeah,
certainly to some extent. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Actually, I mean, is that something for you, GirlWars, as well? And I'm not sure if AuroraPeachy had another point to add what she was saying, because Alex kind of came in as well, but like I'm not sure. No, I think we're just adding to what she was talking about. I don't know if Peachy's had anything more to say on that.
What was cool, see, the difference is with Rotscale, you had to go in with your party, with your skills, with your strategy. There was no like just coming across him in the world and he happened to be up and there happened to be people fighting him. Like that wasn't a thing in Guild Wars 1. You had to go in with your build, with your party, and whether that party was other human players or like heroes or henchmen at the time that it came out. Heroes didn't come in until, with which heroes are customizable henchmen. Those didn't come in until Nightfall, but you had to go in with your strategy, and it really added the strategy part of the game because you would get out there to this remote location, and like I said, you couldn't change anything. You had what you had. There was no like opening up the bank and swap-swapping your gear. There wasn't any of that. And every time you died, every time you failed, you got the death penalty. So you would have to then decide, do I want to try again? Do I want to use some of these really rare items that get rid of death penalty? Do I want to go back and restructure my build? So there was a lot more strategy going in rather than a dynamic event, even a world boss, a very powerful world boss in Guild Wars 2. You can just kind of, I feel like I can just go in willy-nilly and just, I'm going to add my strength to the fight. And it's cool. It's cool that there's all these people, but there's less of a strategic part to it in Guild Wars 2.
It's not like
I definitely agree.
Okay, that's kind of the feeling that you had when you kind of switched into Guild Wars 2, even from the beginning Guild Wars?
Yeah, especially what Peachy said about the strategy and the planning that goes into doing stuff in Guild Wars 1. That was what I was used to. I do agree that Guild Wars 2 is better at getting you kind of in content, in events, no matter what time of day it is. But with Guild Wars 1, there was something really special about organizing a team, getting your friends, getting people that you know or that you don't know, but you soon will make best friends with, and getting them in a team and then doing a mission or doing what you need to do. In Guild Wars 2, it feels faster and quicker, but less personal. So there are bonuses and cons to that. But, events are great, and I think it's awesome to see people, but if you're not actually interacting in the open world with those people, is it as valuable?
Right.
Yeah. But I have to say that the more that I played Guild Wars 2, the more I can interact with people and say hi and stuff. But from the very beginning, not many people wanted to just say hi to me. I remember just going out in the open world and following people around saying hi. And they just run off.
They probably thought you were trolling them.
And that's the thing, but in Guild Wars 1, you could go up to someone in Outpost and be like, hey, and then they'd actually reply back.
I wonder if that's almost like a generational kind of in-gaming thing as well. Maybe that's maybe that's the thing that she's kind of just inherent with the way things are and the way people maybe are on the internet. Maybe they just assume that other people aren't friendly, whereas I think back... Oh gosh, I sound such an old man. I hate this. But you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean, though.
Actually, Guild Wars chat does raise. Guild Wars, what's your primary class that you play?
That's the thing as well. I was gonna say, someone in your chat, Jebro, said, need monk. First time you really need dedicated healers, and that's exactly why I played a monk, because I love the feeling of being needed. It fulfills me in ways you don't
you're
understand.
talking to the right person here. We're gonna go into psychology, aren't we? I'm training as
I got nothing.
There we go. I'm training as a mental health counselor right now. Let's talk about it. I like to feel needed. Peachy is there as well. They're both streamers on Twitch. I mean, is it a coincidence? I maybe like to have that feeling as well. Alex is probably there. What other traits do we need? We're changing it. We're going into the Let's Chat channel. We're done. We're good. Mental health. Let's go. Okay. I know that. That's on the back of my hand.
But there's something really valuable, right, Peachy, about playing a people being good monking, good healing, and it's thank you. Thank you for
But the opposite was also true. They can say, come on, why am I dead?
I was going to say, wouldn't it be the opposite if you died? Yeah, you just be
there was both. But you're right that you never had to wait for a group. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's like playing as a chrono with kill proof today, isn't it? I guess.
Oh, okay.
It's everybody wants you.
It's the needed thing. I guess there is that. I mean, what I was thinking about when you were talking about the kind of same experience and going out there with the strategy of you are going to go do this. The way, I mean, I guess slowly but surely, and in other ways, they tried to recreate that. So PvP, I suppose, was the really organized thing. PvP and World v World was the pretty much, other than, I guess, dungeons, but you could kind of blast through those pretty easily. But then raids, I guess, were the main thing that came in where you had to be, where you were okay, we kind of actually need to plan for this. And it gave you that feeling of, it gave me that feeling. And I raided with Peachy as well. And I know we both streamed and we all had these conversations about what role we're playing, what we're doing, what gear we're bringing, what ability we could add here and there.
I loved it.
And it was great. It was really did bring that idea of a strategy behind it. Because I think there is a lot of that in Guild Wars 2 Overland PvE. You can kind of just do whatever. You could have a stick for all that matters, and you're probably gonna be able to do the thing you're trying to do. Stick, where you can literally. someone's arm
Pick
if you
it up.
want. I mean, you can literally just actually pick up a stick and it's got abilities. They even give you weapons that you can pick up in the game. Even if you haven't got a weapon, you could probably do the thing. But that's actually very true. And I think that's that's intentional because it can get anyone involved in the first place. And I think maybe Guild Wars was a little bit more. I don't know if it was more complicated, because I feel like Guild Wars 2 is massively complicated as well, because there's just so much you can do in terms of combo fields and all this kind of stuff, which just these idiosyncrasies of the game and just these tiny little details that make it quite the combat quite beautiful. Actually, I feel is actually quite a good way of describing it, because it is amazing.
And it really shines in raids, PvP, world versus world. That high level content is where the builds shine. Like, I have so much fun as a druid in raids, but in the open world, I feel kind of useless as a druid. So it's in that very controlled, strategic environment that some of these higher specific builds really shine. And it feels really good.
So I guess there is a place where that feeling is replicated, but it's not a permanent feeling, because even in because Guild Wars, and I'm not sure if anyone else wanted to talk about their experience. I'm not sure if you wanted to talk about GirlWars, so your experience moving from that more cooperative role play experience to the open world. You kind of mentioned something about it. I don't know if you enjoyed it when you jumped in. I mean, Peachy's talking about the first day, the behemoth. I completely identify with that. When the first time I saw that, I was like, whoa, what the flip is this thing? This is amazing. Just walk up to it. Where do I hit this thing? Oh, a target. It doesn't matter. I can stand over there. And it's like, oh, there's this massive chest thing that comes up. I get some sick loot and I'm back to my journey. Go and do an event. It's
I loved the way you guys talk about it. I definitely resonate with that. But there was an element of me going to these things and wanting to make a difference with my build.
Yeah.
But not feeling like, I made that much of a difference. Like, I was just one in a sea of 50 people. And if I wasn't there, it wouldn't have made a difference. Whereas in Guild Wars 1, that you're there and you're 1/8 of a team, basically. So you are making a massive difference. You have your build, you have your role. And in the open world, it's fantastic. But it's more of a spectating thing for me. Open worlds, getting immersed, just kind of enjoying the game.
That's a good way of putting it, actually. I like
stuff,
that.
So
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Spectating. I feel like that is actually more of a thing nowadays as well, generally in games. Camera angle. You're suddenly walking along, and the camera angle, even in single player games, it's even more cinematic now than it's ever been. The camera takes you away from you being the player to then you are the player in this experience, which is it's cinematic, but it's still the same graphics as the game, and it's just the view has just changed. And that happens in Guild Wars 2 as well. The camera kind of goes wider. There's more of a focus on something else.
They've started doing that
exactly
in the story, and I love it.
And it's very good. And they do exactly in ESO. They've just literally started doing it as well. And it's like, okay, they're taking you away. It's really, really good. I feel like they're trying to move us more they're trying to bring single player stuff into MMOs more nowadays. This is funny.
I think they should.
Yeah,
there are things that single player games excel at. Guild Wars 2 has always been good at adapting other little quirks and things from other genres and incorporating it into an MMO, and they're continuing to do that today.
Hopefully we see some more bits and pieces. There are some very, when I noticed the movies come out, like a Marvel movie, and then suddenly there's this almost a very similar storyline in Guild Wars 2, and it's like, okay, right then. I can see the influence of this.
They did it in Path of Fire with the mounts. Mounts in Guild Wars 2 they feel like a single player adventure game, not other MMOs.
Yes. Oh my god.
You feel like you're riding a creature, and every single one is unique, and that's a single player RPG feature. That's not an MMO feature.
No, it is quite. I could do a podcast about mounts as well.
That's so cool. I never actually thought about it that's so true.
It is. And maybe to a degree in Guild Wars, there was this idea that they're kind of doing something even different with that then, because it did have these massively because it was compared to WoW. There were these big like forum and Reddit battles, weren't there? I think so back in the day, you know, about arguments over Guild Wars versus WoW and all this kind of stuff. Like, you know, Guild Wars.
The lack of the sub fee as well was, I felt, quite unique to Guild Wars at the time. I hadn't really played any other game, so that was revolutionary to me. I know it's a bit off topic, but that's still a difference in the transit. I mean, well, you still don't have to pay a sub fee, but
no, you don't.
I mean, that's maybe one thing which was quite good actually as well. I mean, was that? That's another thing we can talk about. Did it feel good to not have to go and pay a sub fee? Because now it's changed to like a fully fledged MMORPG.
I mean,
go ahead. I was just say I wouldn't and couldn't at the time pay a sub fee. So it was like I'm really glad that I got into Guild Wars because that was the one I was able to play. I couldn't play anything with a sub fee. It was like having a console. It was like wanting to play a game that I didn't have the console for when it had a sub fee. It was like, well, I don't have a PlayStation, so I can't play that game. Oh, it has a sub fee. Guess I'm not playing WoW. It was simple as that. I couldn't afford it. So Guild Wars was right there to gobble me up because I couldn't pay a sub fee.
Yeah.
And here we are today.
It was that. Actually, there's.
And now you've got 10 MMOs. You pay sub fee as well. Yay!
Now I am playing an MMO with a sub fee. But
yeah. Same.
There's actually, I've just remembered another piece to the story of how I got into Guild Wars. But yeah, as I said at the beginning, you know, we couldn't afford a sub. We couldn't afford a sub fee, and also now I think back to it is that neither of our computers were powerful enough to play Oblivion. So we needed. We could play. That sounds so bad, doesn't it? But honestly, it was.
But that's the market. That's a market of people to reach. A market of people, and that, you know, cell phone gaming exists. You know, cell phone gaming. We'll be talking about how it's going to be. You know, in the future, it's going to be ridiculously popular because everyone has a screen. And, you know, Stadia and all this kind of stuff coming up. You know, in the distant, I don't know how far away, but you know, if we can play these games on whatever device, as long as you got a screen, it's not going to matter. You know, the more that it's going to be good for everyone. And you know, as we grow, you know, we've all got different PCs with different specs. The lower spec games that are still able to keep up in terms of in some kind of modern way, where you haven't got that sub fee and everything, like old school, you know, RuneScape, for God's sake. I mean,
I was about
all
to
these
mention
old school
RuneScape.
Games, you know, that are just still so popular. You can
It's
play
had
them on
a
whatever you want.
massive comeback in the last few years.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Old school RuneScape. And I think back in the day it was that, and this is one that Teapot mentions a bit as well. Kingdom of Loathing, which is like a browser-based sort. It's not exactly an MMO, but it's like a browser-based RPG. And there's a version that you can buy in Steam now called West of Loathing. But it was kind of like these sort of online games where you could interact in a limited capacity with people, especially when RuneScape was still browser based.
Right.
God, that was awful. But it was it was though, wasn't it? It was tragic, like piling into the library at lunchtime so you could play RuneScape.
I mean, I'm trying to remember what I actually did like at school, and I wasn't into MMOs until, I mean, you talking about the library, I mean, they didn't really come out until I was at uni, so. And it's like, I remember WoW, and I was like almost finishing university, and that came out, and it's like the bad times. There we go. Oh, God, I remember sitting in front of my PC playing PlanetSide, which was my first proper.
PlanetSide was dope.
Oh yeah, well, I used to smoke like 20-pack of Marlboro Reds a day playing that game. It was bad. It was bad.
GirlWars, have you ever seen or heard of PlanetSide?
Anyway, this is not a PlanetSide podcast. I just mentioned that.
It's
of course, it's a good game. That doesn't mean we're going to talk about it. There's many good things in life. I'm not going to talk about my favorite pair of socks, am I?
But speaking of PCs, I did want to add that one of the reasons why I couldn't get into Guild Wars 2 at launch was it just shat on my PC. Like, obviously, I was quite young.
It still does for many people. That's okay.
But it was so difficult to appreciate the beauty of Guild Wars 2 at the time. Like, now I can play it and it looks wonderful, and I have the setup to do so. But at the time, I couldn't. All I saw was just like circles, and I was just like, no, back to Guild Wars.
There is these good things about it then that they have kind of kept this very similar then. I mean, the no sub fee, that same feeling of, the accessibility to the game, which is good. And, go on.
I was just going to say, I think if they had included a sub fee with Guild Wars 2, that would have killed it dead in the first year.
It would have been a wild start, wouldn't it? Probably.
Well, yeah. Absolutely. WildStar didn't need a sub fee. There was
more reasons that messed up, but I think the sub fee was a big mistake.
Oh yeah. There was, WildStar's history was really, really, really troubled. But yeah, one of the big issues was the sub fee.
And 40-man raids. Was it 40? Or was it 20? I can't remember.
It was it was 40.
It was 40. Yeah.
40-man raids. What 5 or 6 years after the heyday of 40-man raids?
Yeah, and wow, and that was a big issue. But I mean, again, I could do a podcast on that.
But I guess this is why, to kind of some extent, that both kind of Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 ArenaNet recognized that having smaller group content, and maybe it is a little bit easier or more accessible or whatever than your big 40-man Onyxia raids or whatever, but having that kind of smaller kind of end game content, while the challenge is still there, it's at the same time it becomes more accessible because it's easier to find a group. And even spamming looking for group in the aerodrome today, it's kind of similar to looking for groups in Tomb of Primeval Kings, or even in Temple of the Ages, waiting to kind of go into those endgame areas, or even like Urgor's Warren, the Deep, that kind of thing. And even though what was the what was the very last dungeon in Either North?
A Time for Heroes? No, that wasn't a dungeon. That was the
Duncan the Black, him. Can't you take like 12 people in for that one, or am I just misremembering that completely?
Don't remember.
I know that there are some instances that very rare places that you can take like 12 people.
Yeah, there was one in factions where like two groups of 8 would team up.
Okay.
Yeah, that was cool. That one. Absolutely impossible if there was no way to get like the mass if there wasn't another party coming in, because you just got swarmed by afflicted.
I think it's good
that is something that I appreciate about Guild Wars 2, is the ability to have like massive squads. Like that feels so good. Like coming from Guild Wars 1, where I would get happy seeing like 5 green dots on my map, with like all the little green triangles for minions and stuff, and feeling so strong, like, oh, this is our group. Like going into Guild Wars 2 with the big squads, things like that that does feel really good. So I'll give it to that. Guild Wars 2 it's a good change. I like it.
So there is a mix of like these kind of different things, like you like this way, you appreciated it like this in Guild Wars. And then Guild Wars 2, even though maybe they've kind of tried to replicate some different things, with trials, with some more raids, with different experiences as well. I mean, I guess the story instances are kind of, in a way, similar-ish to some kind. No, they're not, are they? I was trying to stretch it. I'm sorry. What? Unless they made it like a hard mode where you could where it was a bit longer maybe, and there was like some kind of difficulty involved in the story. I mean, so I think, not to like crap on anyone's experience if you have found bosses in Guild Wars 2 difficult. There are some which do have mechanics, and there is some which are a little bit troublesome. For just if you're just playing kind of casually for Guild Wars 2, there is some challenge there. I do feel like there could be some kind of, because I know there's hard modes in Guild Wars, right?
Yeah.
Not something that really transitioned over to Guild Wars 2, right? Other than raids.
No.
Not really.
No.
It was kind of interesting because there was almost sort of like an artificial hard mode with Guild Wars 1 that you had you had bonus missions and timers. So in prophecies, the missions had like bonus objectives, and when it started, they were like dead easy. Like you just go and collect a couple of bits of armor or whatever. But in the final mission of prophecies, you had to kill the 3 Armageddon Titans somehow before you fought the Lich. I can't quite remember how it played out, but there was. Yeah, I had to end up doing something in a very specific order. And then in factions, it was all time-based. So you had to complete the missions in the fastest amount of time to do that. And then in Nightfall, it was sort of like a combination of the two. So some of them were like time-based, and some of them were based on specific ways that you killed bad guys or items you collected or something like that. And I actually kind of missed even if they'd sort of implemented that in dungeons or in explorables and the story modes. I know they've done it now a little bit with like challenge modes with raids, but considering that like the Vanquish system and hard mode had been in place for years by the time Guild Wars 2 launched, I did kind of think it was a bit of a missed opportunity.
Definitely agree with that. I think vanquishing dungeons would be such a fun thing to do in Guild Wars 2.
Ooh,
like take the dungeons, make them harder, because from what I understand, dungeons have become quite...
Have you done a dungeon in Guild Wars 2?
Yeah, it was a bit of a letdown. I think because of the power creep that's occurred in recent times.
Yeah, you just smash it in the face,
Yeah.
But say they
when
just...
on launch,
in Guild Wars...
they were...
impossible,
they were
man.
Brilliant. They were good. They were like, there's no tank, there's no healer. You can if you want, but like there's probably like
try.
I don't think anyone really knew that toughness was the reason that you had a tank at that time. I'm not sure if anyone knew, but like maybe there was. But like when you're talking about that, like when I'm talking about when we had the dungeon podcast, going ham on that, because you're right. If they could develop that content which has been sitting there for so long, into something very, very good and very meaningful.
I mean, I love killing NPCs in Guild Wars 2. It's really fun because the combat system is amazing.
I love killing NPCs in Guild Wars 2. Just randomly standing in front of Timey, just like waving a sword. Good lord, why won't you die?
But imagine they introduced vanquishing into dungeons and just like made dungeons.
So vanquishing.
More
so can you explain, like really dumb it down for me? Vanquishing. And Alex mentioned something a bit about it. But... Vanquishing
is a concept in Guild Wars 1 that Alex was touching on, where you know how Guild Wars 1 is hidden behind instance content areas. Mm-hmm. You go with a party into a map. There will be a number of enemies in that map. And if you manage to kill all the enemies existing in that map, I think in a specific, like on hard mode, I believe it is, then you get a reward that contributes towards your fighter.
You can do it on normal as well. But
I did that once. Okay, I remember. Cool. And you want that in Guild Wars 2, for hard mode?
That would be fun. I think you can't do it in open world, obviously, but behind any instance content, I think it'd be fun.
That would be great. I would love that. Vanquishing in Guild Wars 1 was so fun. I mean, I spent like years on that. Like it was just every I had a chunk of time and I would click it on hard mode and go and see if I could vanquish the area. Like, and then except when you're looking for that one enemy you're missing and it's just like, you're like, I can't find it.
That's the thing, right? Yeah.
Or it's like a pop-up, it's invisible, so you can't even see it on the map and you're just like tracing your stuff.
Would you do that with friends
I have
as well?
Such good memories. Yeah. If you go into the instance with friends, then you do it with them.
I had that same experience, but in Guild Wars 2 with a chicken. I had to kill that one lost chicken to get an achievement point, and I could not find it. It was so stressful.
I mean, you could do that in story instances as well, I guess. Increase the amount of mobs in different areas, like specific ones. I mean, there's, think about Path of Fire instances, which were quite big, and the living story through there, and which was more present, around, just after the expansion came out, and then from I can't remember which season, and then how big those instances were, and how many different mobs there were, and how even Heart of Thorns, when conditions started to be a thing, because there was a lot of mobs. If you put it on a hard mode, the amount of replayability that you could have, like similar to Guild Wars 1, like Peachy's saying, you got a chunk of time. Imagine if you're on a stream, you get 4 or 5 people in there with that, you get a squad or something, you got raid difficulty, just slap a bar on them, make them gold, I don't know, and just go ham, you all get, a title, or you get like a stick that looks nice. I don't know, and something. It's an MMO. Just give us something that looks nice, and then people will go for it. You know, it's literally that easy.
Give me a weapon of an alternate color.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Weapons were dyeable.
Whoa,
In Guild Wars 2, they're not.
Oh, here we go. Let's see. I'd not got that on the topic. See, this is what I like. If there's stuff that you feel, and chat as well, if there's something that you feel is different from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2. All right, let's go on to this. Let's go on to this then, because I think the last thing we're good with. Generally, I think there's a feeling that there was a good amount of challenge from instance content that was around in Guild Wars 1, which is pretty much the content of the game. That's what the game was about. Moving to Guild Wars 2, and you know, you involve many more people with a plethora of different skill levels. It's going to become this experience, which is a little bit more easy to navigate, because it has to be, because the amount of different skill levels where people are. And then you can invest and go into these other places which make content more difficult, fractals, raids, and I'm not talking about the top 1%ers who you see, you know, spamming raids and whatnot. And doing this content where they're asking for harder stuff all the time. That's a very tiny part of the top part of the community that play the game. And any MMO that panders to them is you know, not doing a good job, in my opinion. They can't. They need to pander to the wider audience. They have to. That's where the money is. But you know, but we're talking about, still there is that necessary challenge that might be needed, and even just for us, you know, playing, you know. I mean, you're talking about Peachy's like, I want this hard stuff in the game. This vanquishing stuff looks good. GirlWars wants this. Alex wants it as well. And I would love to try that stuff. So cool. That was a good roundup. Next thing, Diable Weapons. Why aren't they in there? I just like to do a little bit of a roundup summary of each topic before we move on. I like that. I do. But like, so that's one thing that, you know, what color did you want to make your sword in Guild Wars 2 Peachy, on your Guardian?
I wanted to match my armor, whatever armor or outfit I decide to wear, which can be dyed any color.
Amen.
So people tend to dye their armor to match their weapon because you can't change the weapon.
So true.
So
true.
Which I'm okay with, and I know.
No, you're not. You're looking down. You're not okay with it. Stop saying that. You're just like, your Peachy is like, oh, I'm trying to be nice here, but you can be. We're respectful. If it's something that you would love to have, and that you can't, because this is how you get things in life. You know, you can't. You just have to be respectful about it. Which is,
and actually, Peachy has forced ArenaNet action.
I forced no one to do anything.
Wow, Alex!
You did.
I prompted the change.
True
to the
influencer power.
Button in the inventory. I prompted it.
I remember. I remember that. I remember, and that's how things happen. Like, you know, people react, and this is life. Everyone, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get. As long as you're respectful to people and you're polite, you know, they'll respect that you've asked. And if you get people say no, then they say no. And it's just, if you do the things and you're disrespectful and angry, and you're not gonna get many places in life, that's for sure.
So what I want now is, weapons-wise, I would love more. They've done it a little bit in Guild Wars 2, but since weapons aren't dyeable, there are some places in the game where the different achievements, like Super Adventure Box, different achievements, you can get the same weapon in a different color. And because they're shiny and bright, it's very obvious. Oh, this person has the orange one, that's from dailies. They have the red one, that's from hard mode or whatever it is, tribulation mode. And there's like a gold one and there's a blue one. And so if you're carrying around an orange weapon, people who know how you got that achievement, it's like carrying around an achievement.
I like that.
So I would love to see more. Instead of creating a brand new weapon, just change the color. So then we have color options on our favorite weapons, but you might have to achieve something different to get it.
I love that idea.
Clip it.
Yeah.
Clip it and ship it.
And send it on.
Indeed. It's a good idea. You know, I mean, why? This is. I remember that. I remember playing. When I was playing Guild Wars and you could dye I think the things that I found that you could do in Guild Wars that weren't in Guild Wars 2, I was very surprised. And that was one of them. I was like, you can dye your weapon. What? And you're right, every time, you look at the weapons, if I want to have a character which wears, that has black and white dye, I'm grabbing, I can't remember what the weapon's called, but it's the half black and white themed weapon
called
set.
I know what you mean. They're dead nice. They're like,
I can't remember. Or I'm going for the chaos stuff, or am I going for all this specific stuff? I'm not just like
the Equinox set. That's what they're called.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Mm-hmm. Everyone's on it. Well done. And you're right. I will base. That's sad, isn't it? I'm just thinking about that. God damn it! There's some really good skins, but they're just gold. And I'm like, I don't necessarily want to be gold, man. I'm like, can I have this super adventure box skin with this really dark looking armor? I mean, if I colored it like black or like dark red, or I mean, at least it would be on theme. But I can't do that, man. I like my super adventure box shield. But it doesn't really look like demonic and like depraved and stuff, does it? Unless they change the color. I mean, I don't know if you can actually do that with that shield.
Can we appreciate though that back pieces are starting to be dyeable?
I'm so glad they have.
So there's
on the capes.
Yeah. Not older ones. The ones that are already out that are not dyeable will not become dyeable, but new ones like capes that are coming out.
Oh
capes
yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah.
And there's I think there's another one that was released that wasn't a cape that was dyeable. I forget what it was. But yeah, back pieces.
And you couldn't have capes in Guild Wars, could you? Sorry, you could have capes in Guild Wars, but not on launch of Guild Wars 2.
It was a glorious day. It was a glorious day.
That was something as well.
Capes.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is amazing. That was another thing in Guild Wars where I was like, I've got a cape. I remember running around. I think there's a clip of me running around being like, I've got a cape in Guild Wars 1, and this game is like how many ever years old, and in Guild Wars 2, no. What was happening? But then, capes came out, and I was like, okay, this is actually... I know that capes are a difficult thing in every MMO, unless they've been developed from launch. Like, I know Rift, with Tryon, I know they employed a specific company which made capes in games. But it was actually a dedicated cape company.
Cloth physics.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like an actual thing that I don't think they just focused in capes, but I think it was something about the technology to fit the cape on the character and make it land correctly.
You've got clipping, and with Guild Wars, you've got the different races. Like putting a cape on a char is very different than putting a cape on a human.
Absolutely, because you've got that extra curve at the back, and it's just how it comes down. You've got the weapons on the back, you've got back pieces, and obviously it's still not perfect.
Weapons and back pieces just clip. Well, the cape is a back piece, but weapons just clip. They're just gonna clip. I don't even see clipping anymore.
No, it's an accepted thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just like this is gonna clip, and it's gonna be. My immersion was broken many years ago in the clipping business. But yeah, it's kind of funny how, and now these things are starting to come in, so maybe they are going to start to bring all these bits and bobs, I guess. You can toggle weapons and you can toggle all these bits and pieces, I guess, but still nice to have this stuff looking like it's not going to clip.
Yeah,
that's the way it's not that I'm majorly hung up on this.
No,
not really that bothered. Just hyped about clips.
The weird thing was with dyes, there were just some, I guess dyes in general, there were just some very weird arbitrary things that were either not carried over or implemented in Guild Wars 2, like the fact that you couldn't dye back pieces or weapons, I mean, obviously, they got rid of the mixing thing, but there's like 400 or 500 even.
What did you say? But what you said? But something, and it went quiet because you cut out at times.
Oh, sorry, dye mixing was a thing. Like you could buy like different dyes. And what was really, really great about Guild Wars 1, especially with it wasn't only the dye market, but it was the rare materials market as well. That it was actually like its economy. There was an economy built in behind it. So it was all the prices fluctuated on supply and demand. So depending on how many people sold them, price went down. Depending how many people bought them, the price went up. It was really cool, but you'd always see like black and whites and ectos always hovering around, the highest prices. But they had this dye mixing thing, which I never got the hang of. I ended up making a really kind of sort of like naff brown color with all of my dyes. days. And but there were some amazingly talented people with it, and there were huge Wikipedia articles about how to get these specific colors. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was kind of really great to see, and it was something I didn't see in Guild Wars 2, mainly because I guess they gave us about 200 dice to start with, even before the.
There wasn't a need for die mixing. Die mixing, dies were physical items in your inventory in Guild Wars 1. There wasn't from launch in Guild Wars 2, there was the die in your inventory, but you would use it, unlock it on your account. There wasn't it wasn't
character
one
bound. Do you remember?
Right, they were character bound. But once you unlocked it, it was kind of like the wardrobe system is now. So in Guild Wars 1, there were only 10 colors, 11 after they added pink. And so you kind of needed that dye mixing. It was nice that they even gave us dye mixing in Guild Wars 1. But I agree, it was a lot of fun.
I mean, you make a good point as well about the economy. Like black dyes in particular were kind of almost a form of currency, which was a cool thing when you would get a dye drop. Like little things like that about the game. I don't see dyes as kind of like, you can't tell how much someone spent on their armor from looking at them in Guild Wars 2 in terms of dyes, but in Guild Wars 1 it was hot shit if you had all black dyed armor.
All obsidian, all black obsidian armor was that was like the top tier, most expensive armor in the game.
Wow. While we're on that, can we talk about player trading as well, and why is it 2? Because that was a massive.
Thank you for bringing that up, actually, because that's another thing I did not mention, and that is important. So you can't. So what was that you could trade? Because I remember Guild Wars. That was another thing where I was like, it's similar with the cape. It was like my mouth open. I was like,
yeah.
I've got like 20 pets now for some reason. I don't want them, but you can give them to me if you want to, rather than just like actually sending them through the mail, and it's not 6. And it's just like what? Why?
I mean, there was a. I mean, to start with, there was a limit to how much you could send a player in one transaction in terms of platinum, wasn't there? Was it?
Yeah.
In Guild Wars 1?
200?
Yeah. There was. I can't quite remember what it was.
You would say this much platinum, and then like this many ecto was.
And then
ecto was
yeah.
So there was a max.
100k.
Yeah, and it was I mean, it was for like ridiculously rare stuff, like I can't even think now, but it got to the point where it's like for elemental swords and all kind of stuff that was like uber rare drops. But I mean, the only reason that I can think that they got rid of player trading was kind of to promote the trading post. And in kind of a way, it's actually very, very clever, because we kind of complain that as years have gone by, we've kind of, all of the major podcasts and Reddit threads and players have touched on the fact that gold has progressively become worth less and less as the games got older. But I think they inadvertently put in probably the most effective gold sink that the game's ever had in the trading post when it takes the fee. Like, I'd be really interested to see the statistics of how much gold is just reabsorbed back into the system in Guild Wars 2 every day just through trading post fees.
True.
But I think that was, if they certainly didn't think of it, it was a very, very beneficial unintentional side effect that they put that gold sink in. And I don't know, I guess maybe it gave them a little bit more control over the economy, and maybe gave them that little bit of a gold sink, or I guess maybe if they were starting to think about something like the gem store, because the cash store in the first game, it was just done through a browser page. It wasn't really incorporated into the game. But yeah, it was just kind of weird. So I mean, I don't know whether or not
there was one at a trading post.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, that was the big transition as well, a trading post. I mean, you
There's
have
no
to have
Spamodon
one.
in Guild Wars 2.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to, like. I mean, Guild Wars 1. I mean, I mean, people probably wish that there was one, just because there were all these players that could access this thing, which you could sell items on, I guess, but they wouldn't. And Guild Wars 2 is like, it is now an MMORPG. We have to have a trading post, so we have to have a way for people to do this, because this is just this is inherent of MMORPGs.
There's a lot more items in Guild Wars 2 as well to trade.
Exactly, and important.
Is merchanting something that people in Guild Wars 2 do? Do you ever hear about that, or is the only way to make money by playing the game?
There are gold barons about. There's guys that control guilds that, especially in World v World, really. Like you can buy like a stone mist capture or something like that, but there's guilds out there that will bankroll an entire economy for a smaller guild or something like that. It's mad, some of the actual like shadow economics that take place in Guild Wars 2 that ArenaNet never even see happening. There was a subreddit called, was it Guild Wars 2 Exchange, where so on the trading post in Guild Wars 2, the maximum amount that an object can go for is 10,000 gold. And of course, if you want to buy like a Chak egg sack or one of the things I do remember was the mini awakened abomination, and it's only about 400 or 500 gold on the trading post now. But when it first came out, because it only drops from the end of the Desolation meta event from the big legendary dude, and I desperately wanted that. Like, I still think it's so cool that it was my mission to get it, but for the longest time there was nobody selling it in the trading post. And it was the Jin minis as well, because they nerfed the drop rate for them a while back. But before, you could only buy them outside the game, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost through that system that you went back to the Guild Wars 1 style of doing things, where you'd actually trade like materials and weapons for in-game items.
And that's probably where it came from, that idea, if that had been created there. We're starting to get on a bit now, so I know there's probably a million more things we could talk about. But I'm going to ask each one of you, and I just need to nip out the door for like 2 minutes, and this is a good time for me to do that as well. Because my landlord needs to talk to me, apparently. There's some work going on next door, and it's probably going to start soon. If there was one thing that you could take from Guild Wars 1 that's not in Guild Wars 2, one thing that you miss so much, what would it be? And I'll be 2 minutes. I'm going to start with Alex. Okay, I'm going to be 2 minutes, and I'll be back. All right. And the reason I'm starting with him is because it could go on longer than 2 minutes. Wow. And you can. You have permission. I'm going to be right back, okay?
All right.
I trust you guys.
We've got this.
We got this. Thing that you miss in Guild Wars 1 that you wish was in Guild Wars 2. One thing.
Yeah. One thing. One thing, okay.
Just one.
Okay. I'm gonna say it's skill capping. I thought it was it was such a unique kind of end game mechanic that nothing else has done, or to my mind has done since in the game. That even once you get all your skins and whatever, and even when you try and buy the elite skills in PvP, the elite skills don't come through to PvE, if I remember correctly. I can't remember, but yeah, the fact that, I mean, I used to do this all the time and get my ass kicked by the environment, but I used to go on. I've still not finished the achievement, but I used to go on and out, and I'd load up half my skill bar with capture signets, because I was terminally lazy and just wanted to get as many of them as possible in one go. But yeah, it was just such a great mechanic. And I remember back when they were showing out skill bars and elite skills and that kind of thing, that I do remember everyone being really disappointed, like the Guild Wars 1 community, that you just got your elite skill, and there wasn't even like a quest or anything assigned to it. You got it.
Elite skills were special when you
Yeah.
capped them, and like it was an adventure just capping all of the elite skills. And when you got one, it was because you defeated this boss that had this special ability, and you captured that special ability, and it almost put a story behind the elite skills, and there just isn't that in Guild Wars 2.
Absolutely, and the fact that Jeb, still going.
It was less than 2 minutes, to be fair. Very good.
But there was just something about it that, it was just great. And as someone mentioned in chat, there was that one particular necro skill where you had to like guess where the boss was going to spawn. It was in like one of 4 maps. And it was the only place you could get it. And I was frustrating trying to chase this friggin' boss around, trying to capture it. And it was just great. And the fact that so many builds were like built around this one elite this one elite skill. So like a lot of your monk kind of hero builds were based around like words of healing. You got Spiteful Spirit, 100 Blades. Was it Broad Arrow or Barrage? That was the one. That was a dick to get, because in Prophecies, what you had to do was it was the guy at the end of, it was either at the end of Thunderhead Keep or the Iron Mines of Molodune. And
How do you remember all this? I'm just like, Jesus, like, bloody hell, man.
And
it's like reading it. She remembers everything. I'm just like, how do you guys do this? Like, photographing it. I don't know what it is, but I'm just like, I literally have, like, which country am I in right now? I'm just like, I'm literally talking to 3 English. There's 2 English people in here and an American, and I live in America. I'm just like, where am I right now? I literally have problems with that. And Alex is like pulling names of these things out from like 10 plus years ago. I'm just like, Jesus.
Iron Mines of Molodune.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah. I'd be lucky if I remember what I had breakfast yesterday. And it's the same thing every day. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it was.
I'm jealous of your mind. Go on.
Oh, but I have so much crap in my mind, aside from what I actually need for work or anything like that.
Yeah. That's the thing, man.
Yeah. But it was just a really cool way of displaying that there was another aspect to endgame, rather than going off and beating the biggest bosses or getting the armor, but actually building out your skill set as well. It was just something completely different that I haven't seen in any game since, really.
So what was that? Sorry, with the thing, because I was away. So just like I was trying to
skill capping.
Skill capping. Okay, there you go. Cool. Oh yeah.
Anyway, that's
your thing.
Very brief take on.
No, that's good. That was actually not that long at all.
I'll shush now.
GirlWars. No, you don't. You don't have to shush. I'm just taking the piss. You bring insightful and great conversation. Don't worry.
Yeah.
GirlWars. Yes.
Say, similarly, I agree with the skill capping thing.
You can't just copy him. You need your own thing. That's not how this question works.
So I have 2 ideas, but I won't go into both of them in detail. The first is, we've touched on it already, is meme builds. I think the game needs more meme builds.
Oh, there's plenty of those.
Fun.
Don't worry about that.
Are you sure?
Oh, of course.
Well, I haven't seen them yet.
Mesmer, Lich Necro in 2v2 is now a thing. I mean, they're definitely there.
Not meme as in overpowered, but meme as in just like silly, fun, stupid things that you just run and people laugh at you. But then again, people.
I stream Guild Wars too. People definitely. I was going to say, yeah, they do that with me as well.
The second would probably be alliances. I think alliances in Guild Wars 1 brought something really healthy to competition. It was a competition in PvP that was so not toxic. It was based it almost interwove lore with PvP, and it made it so that people interested in the lore of the faction Kazakh and Luxon, who were passionate about that, could then channel that passion into PvP, into places like Jade Quarry, Alliance battles, things like that. And it had a whole system of earning faction and rewards that would go back into your PvE titles. So that kind of encouraged a set of maybe people who wouldn't touch PvP.
Or cross-play between different modes.
Yeah.
Right,
interwove kind of people interested in PvE and completing their account and getting titles into PvP, because in order to get Guam, things like that, you'd need rank 12 Luxon and Kurzik. So you could get that faction through PvE, but it was far more efficient to do things like Jade Quarry and Alliance battles, which were a mix of PvP and PvE.
Right.
So I think alliances in your guild promote guild missions, promote guild activities, promote PvP, and have fun with it and progress your account. So that would be really cool.
And was that something? And again, I don't know, because my knowledge and the reason I did this podcast, Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, was not because my knowledge of Guild Wars 1, by the way. But he wasn't there for something. I think Rita told me about this, but my memory, as we've talked about before, where you can do something in PvP and you get access for your server to a specific thing, like there was a map or something or a zone you got access to, and
oh no, that's right, yeah. If your region got favor of the gods or whatever it was, you got
like
access. You got access in Temple of Ages to Fisher of Woe.
Right. Okay.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
That is something that, and I guess that's what triggered for me as well when you're talking about that. I really like that idea, GirlWars, to be fair, like bringing those things in. Yeah, it's.
Hopefully, I've heard they're bringing alliances to Guild Wars. We just don't know.
That's right. Yeah, that's been a long. That's for World v World, and that's been a few years now, I think. I mean, hasn't it? I mean, it's been a while.
At least 2 years.
Yeah, at least 2.
Since I mentioned that.
And it is a really, really good idea. I remember going to the studio, and when I was started to talk about it back then, this isn't NDA breaking because I'd already started talking about it, and how keen and excited they are still probably for this feature. And it's like, I'm not sure it's the same. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but it can really add something to World v World, hopefully. But I think a lot of people have even probably forgotten about it, in all honesty. I mean, it's almost like a lot of things, unfortunately, which kind of get talked about, and then you don't see them come down the line for a while. And it can build excitement, but you never know. Hopefully it'll come.
It becomes part of someone's identity. Like, just reading your chat as well, people talking about Luxons and Kurziks, like it becomes a part of why you love a game and part of how you identify in a game. And it's so healthy as well. It's not toxic or personal. It's just loving the game and being passionate about the game. And I think the game needs a bit more of that. So
yeah, that's yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Well said. That is a well said thing. That's the point of this podcast as well, really. We're not really talking about the negative things. We can bring in the things which kind of we would like to have been improved, and things that we would like to have, like Diable Weapons. But these aren't meant to be like things where we're always respectfully critical, which is fine, and that's what I if you're listening to this in Spotify or watching this on YouTube or Twitch, whenever you've got something, if you're mad about something, like in a game or whatever, it's no point in insulting and being a bad person, basically. That's what I'm going to say. Just be critical, be respectfully critical, and say a thing, and how can this sucks, but maybe it could be done in this way. Offer some kind of alternative, because we can all say something sucks. It's not that difficult. It's a bit more difficult to engage in a conversation and have a discussion, isn't it, everyone? So try and do that. GirlWars, awesome, yes, and hopefully that will come soon. It is in the works. Crossed. Yeah, it's a difficult thing for them to do, but hopefully. Peachy, the thing from, you may not even remember the original question, so I'm just going to say it again, because I forgot for a second. The thing from Guild Wars 1 that you would love to bring to Guild Wars 2, is it Diable Weapons?
No, it's not Diable Weapons, because I like my idea of the tiered, the achievement colored weapons.
I think that's a great idea, actually. Very good idea.
I legit would rather have them do more of that than introduce Diable
Even if
Weapons.
it's a glow or something, even if it was just something like
exactly,
that.
Exactly.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah,
solid.
More of that. But I'm going to give a quick honorable mention to cross-classing, of course, but I think that's just kind of a given. And we've talked at length about that. But there's this tiny little feature that is not even needed anymore with mega servers, but that I still miss to this day. And that is Guild Wars 1 had something called the district system. And all was a drop-down menu list of how many instances of the map you were in that existed. So if I was on the NA servers and I was in Lion's Arch, I could push the little drop-down menu for the districts and see how many districts or instances of that map there were. So at any time there was maybe, at its peak, maybe there were 5 instances on NA of Lion's Arch. And so there was that many people. You would know that there was that many people playing the game.
Yeah.
So, and during holidays is when it got really exciting because you would go to Lion's Arch during Winter's Day. There were hundreds of districts. And it was kind of a gauge for how many players were in the game and playing. And you could see when peak times were. You could see, I loved telling my friends, let's all go meet in District 88. And we would all go to District 88 and party there. And now, granted, we have the mega server system now. You can right-click join in maps.
And
there's
so
not
the
a
Peachy
need.
Party was born.
That's right. There's a need for it in Guild Wars 2 because you can get into the same instance as someone else. But there was something special about saying, let's meet in this district, and let's pick a super high one at Winter's Day because, oh my God, there's that many people playing.
Yeah.
But also, players came up with things like during Winter's Day, there were timed events and you could pick Dwayna or Grenth, for example. And if more people were on the Dwayna circle, then you would get her headpiece. And if people were on the Grenth circle, you would get the Grenth headpiece. Well, it just kind of became a thing that if you want the Dwayna headpiece, you have to go into an even numbered district. If you want the Grenth headpiece, you go into an odd numbered district. And so the players came up with these ways to hop instances and get the rewards that they wanted by cooperating together.
Okay.
And we don't have that in Guild Wars 2.
I love that.
I miss that.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, it's the mega server is such a good idea. And it's like a lot of the modern things which come in, which you'd think would be that are so beneficial to the game and how it works, but then they take away a tiny little something that maybe was there that players created that actually help them interact a lot more than they do. And I feel like a lot of games do that now, even though like there's quality of life is something which is really, really important to have. Especially if you like newer players and people growing up now in games and how that's there. But the sense of like really making an effort to do something like that, which actually brings you together more as a group, is starting to kind of fade out a lot more. I mean, obviously people create groups, people connect in many different ways now, and I'm sure this is replicated in many different ways. So I don't want to sound like a boomer, as GirlWars put it. But it's gonna be there forever. But there is new in different ways, and I am excited about all these different ways that people can interact with each other in groups. And I always think new technology and all this kind of stuff is awesome. I'm really happy that people can do this kind of stuff, but sometimes maybe there's a tiny little thing that is missing and is kind of replaced with something which takes away from that experience. So actually that's kind of, I like the kind of mix we've got here of different things that people kind of miss as well from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2. I'm just like, I can't really give you any answers for these questions. Like normally I give my own answer and I can't really do that. But I don't know.
Here's one for you, Jebro. Based on everything that we've kind of talked about today, that
which one's better? I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
What I was gonna say was, is there anything that we kind of talked about that makes you go, oh man,
on the PvP
I wish
stuff.
I'd got. Yeah, like,
I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, I'm the stuff that I wish
you wish
I'd
you'd gone into Guild Wars back on the ground.
Absolutely. Kind of yeah, like I mean, I was playing at the time. It was PlanetSide, then WoW for a year and a half up to Burning Crusade, and I was just like, I didn't really like Guild Wars when I played it. I think I didn't even know it was about PvP as well. I didn't know that existed. Like someone just let me borrow their account. I used to play with this guy who was playing Halo 3. and he had an account that he just didn't use anymore, and I think it was about the same time, and I got into it that way, and I was like, I played it for a day, I think, and I just went across a bridge, I remember, and not knowing what the hell to do. It was one of the expansions with the ritualist, I think. I can't remember.
Abstractions.
Maybe it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what's going on, and I stopped. And I think that's because I was still trying to get into the genre, really, and I wasn't seeing anyone around, and I wasn't sure. I didn't think it was an MMORPG in the same as WoW, because I couldn't walk through like Ironforge or whatever it was, and just be like, oh, there's a dwarf, which I still can't do in most games. FYI, bring them back, because I like dwarves a lot. I'm very upset that I can't be a dwarf in any MMO other than Lord of the Rings right now, and Rift. And who's gonna play Rift now? Anyway, oh, no one is. Let's be honest. But it's still a great game. You should go play it if you haven't. Yeah, PvP. The whole GVG thing that I missed out on, that everyone was banging on about for God knows how long, because I was there, the insurgents of GVG in Guild Wars 2. I was one of the first people that ever competed in that, with a load of other people. And all the people who are into it now, and all the streams that are around now, when we used to gather on the World v World map at the bottom where the mill is, the tower, the spinning wheel thing, whatever it's called. That's where we used to fight. You used to like watch from the top there, and you used to watch like what was it, 15 versus 15, or 10 versus 10? I can't remember what they made it back then. I think it was just two parties. But,
before they put in the
squads as well. Or was it squads or whatever? Yeah.
Squads came in with Heart of Thoughts, didn't they?
Yeah. Because it was before then, when it was just pies, and it was like just watching it from afar. I mean, that was before it went into the arena that they've got now in World v World or anything else. And ever since then, I was like, I've never got to play this thing in Guild Wars. Never got to play this thing, and it just looks so good. And there's what GirlWars is talking about as well. I mean, I was lucky enough that I got spectating, and like for me, other than arenas, like and partners do as well, affiliates or whatever, can watch all automated tournaments and stuff, and it does allow us to have these streams where people can gather together and watch, which is good. Which I feel they still would do, because people can offer commentating and stuff. But people, unfortunately, I think they feel like I don't think they can get that many people in there to watch. I think system-wise, it just doesn't work. The system isn't there that was there in Guild Wars, and that's a big shame. And that's something which I think they're missing a lot in Guild Wars 2, to get more people involved and to watch those people and be like, I can learn from that person by just pretty much, I don't want to say stalking them, but watching their gameplay, and how unique that player is, because you can connect to them, and it would have been quite cool. But I don't know. I mean, at least you got Twitch for that nowadays, so that's not too bad. You can go and watch that person play. I mean, if you think about Syndranet, for example, doesn't really talk a lot on this stream. He just plays. And, he's got a lot of people in there watching him, because he's damn good at the game, and he's got a lot of insightful comments, and he knows what he's doing, and that's the kind of that's the kind of streamer he is. He's bloody good at the game, and that's where you go. I'm sitting there for hours and just watching him play Thief. It's just the way it is. I'm not saying he's not funny or entertaining as well, by the way. It's just like, that's mainly what he does. And I think that's one thing that, I kind of wish maybe that I'd been involved, but then again, I wouldn't have had the experiences in other games like PlanetSide, Halo 3, Warhammer Online, all these games that were so good and important as I was growing up. But like for you guys, like it's really nice to hear the passion that you had for the game and the things you remember and the things that you kind of wish would transition over, but may not work now in 2020 or 2012 when it released. And
it's such a different landscape, and I know, and again, it does sound like a bit of old as it was back in my day, but even when you look at single player games these days, that the shift, not necessarily in complexity, but just the shift in how any game plays compared to 2005 to 2020, there's much less of a here's the game, off you pop, have fun. I think the only game that's really kind of done that in the last 5-10 years has been Dark Souls, and even Minecraft now has like a tutorial, whereas before, when it was still in beta or whatever, that it just dropped you in the middle of a forest and said, well, it didn't say anything, but it was it was just a completely different environment. And I think a lot of things that perhaps catered to a more hardcore and focused audience perhaps wouldn't work quite as well today. And I think we kind of see that reflected in the direction that Guild Wars 2 has gone in terms of its increased levels of accessibility.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier, especially with the rise in things like mobile gaming, that you've got to have these more accessible games. And as amazing as Guild Wars 1 is, I certainly wouldn't say it's a particularly accessible game. It even kind of dumb stuff like that you don't really notice that it's missing until you actively think about it, like jump. I mean, the only reason that it's relevant in Guild Wars 2 is because the mechanics and jumping puzzles are built around the function of jumping. It's not intrinsic. It's not necessarily intrinsic to the gameplay.
Alex is basically trying to tell us that he wants no jumping back. That's the thing he misses from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2. He wants you to do slash jump. That's what he's saying.
But it's.
I agree though. Like coming from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, jumping back into Guild Wars 1, there does feel like something's been taken away now. Like that you want to be able to do these things.
Yeah.
Like I didn't wish for it when I was playing Guild Wars 1. Yeah. But now that I'm more into Guild Wars 2, there is that I go, oh, I wish I had that. So then I understand then when people come to my stream, try Guild Wars 1 and are like, oh, I missed this. Like click to move as well is another thing in Guild Wars 1 that you have that people just don't understand.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
So it's just.
Oh my God.
But that's the thing. Both games are amazing, and in their own right, and it's
which is probably why it's still going, right? And it's still there.
Exactly,
It exists. Okay, it's in maintenance mode or whatever, but they still care about it and touch it up at times, and they advance, the way it works. If there's a technology they've developed, they try and slide it into there, right? I mean, they've done that in the past. I mean, I remember Wooden Potatoes made a video about the draw distance a fair while ago, which there's something like that increased. I know, there's been dedicated dev who left, I believe, ArenaNet that GirlWars had made a video about, and there's all these different people who are still very much involved with the game, and it's still, I think if you need that kind of experience, you can go back to that and you can have that.
Exactly.
But
Guild Wars 1 didn't need those mechanics and those things, but because it doesn't, it shows its age when you go back to it.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Too, right?
There's quite a lot of games that I play.
That's nice. How many games do you play? Many games. I play loads of games.
There's quite a lot of games.
Good Wars 2 podcast.
Anyway, back to the conversation. Look, my point was that before I got into MMOs and that one of my favorite games ever was Baldur's Gate 2. But fast forward 18 or 19 years, and you've got Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire come out, Divinity Original Sin 2.
Oh yeah.
And despite the fact that they're very similar games, and that these newer games have kind of been like a renaissance for the genre, the way that I feel that Deadfire plays compared to Baldur's Gate 2, the contrast feels very similar to me between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, that it's reassuringly similar, but it's dated, if you know what I mean. It's just that little bit of disconnect. I don't know. I mean,
it's inevitably there, and we're going to kind of end very shortly because we've been going over a bit. But and you guys definitely
Sorry.
have like no, not you, we. It's easy
Disappeared.
to. It's every single
so
podcast
alone.
I've done. It goes to over 2 hours, in because you get infused about these things. You know,
Anyone?
these people have lives, and I want them to live them and actually have a day off and
shit
an
the bed.
evening off. Maybe they've got work tomorrow. And
Just
wow.
laugh.
No, don't do that because it's gonna mess up my camps. No, you ruined it.
Ruined.
Oh, is he? Is it's called actually
Now he's
gone
trying
down?
to reconnect.
Did he try?
Aw.
Did he actually try to like meme? Oh god, I hate that one. Did he actually try to like make a joke and it's now failed? Is this,
Yeah,
is
now
this
he can't
what's
come
happened?
back.
Oh good lord! I'm not restarting the call,
No.
Alex. Oh no, his
his
internet
internet died at a
died.
very appropriate time.
Right. That
Sure,
was just
the internet died.
Fail me.
Mhm. He needed a moment.
And the cameras might go a little bit skew for a minute. Sorry if you're watching. But it'll be fine. We're still here talking. Oh God, I completely lost my train of thought. Working towards the end. Okay, yes. The evolution of a game, especially when you've got a sequel which isn't an MMORPGs. If you think about, well, I mean, I know there's a RPG, cooperative RPG. There's not many MMOs or like series of games that have another one that's another multiplayer game like this, you know, and the size. You know, you don't have Warcraft 1, well, World of Warcraft 1 and World of Warcraft 2. There's not many that have this. And I think, you know, Guild Wars, to get to that place where they knew they could have a live game service that could last for so long, that they could bring people into and this universe, and also just because they had the money and the resources to actually make this thing in the first place, because Guild Wars was so ridiculously successful in its own right. We can see you again, by the way, and probably hear you. You're good. Is, you know, it's evolution. I mean, they've obviously done better with Guild Wars 2 than they did with Guild Wars 1. They must have, because, you know, I think Guild Wars was more niche. I think in America it was definitely known more of. I mean, obviously Guild Wars and Alex, it doesn't make any sense because 3 of us are English and 2 of you have played it, and so it's like that doesn't even make any sense. And I don't know if that's a true statement, but in my world it didn't exist. And you know,
What
I think
was this? Sorry, I missed half that.
I'm just making a really long-winded comment. That means nothing probably. I'm just talking about the evolution of the Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, and inevitably there's probably more people playing Guild Wars 2 that ever played Guild Wars, even no matter how good it is. And that's due to many things like accessibility. It's 2020, most people have a PC, so that's one reason, other than the fact that, you know, the game is easy to get. You don't have to pay for it at all. You can play it for free. You know, you can play it for free if you especially if you use a content creator's link today. Oink oink. There is definitely every one of us have that link. If you want to level to level 2 and above, everyone gets this happy sandwich. And I don't know what that means. And don't look at that as a euphemism, because that can mean anything you want it to mean. So I'm going to shut up now. Happy sandwich. Never said that before. Oh, wait a minute. No, yeah, there it is. Okay, that's going out of the head right now. But yeah. Either way, if chat has anything that you would like to ask very quickly, a question about like the Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2 transition, I'm pretty much going to end. And if there's anything that you guys wanted to bring up that you thought, you know what, we're not talking about this one thing from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2 that didn't really exist. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to mention very quickly? Someone said there is something while chat talks about this. What's a polymock? What's this polymock thing?
It's this really annoying side game that Surens came up with.
Wow.
Yeah,
AuroraPeachy hates Asuras, apparently.
Not a fan of Polymock.
It was sort of like Pokemon, like you.
All 3 of you just cringed really hard when I mentioned it. I was like, we were talking about this the other day on stream. I was like, Polymock, and they were like, it's like Pokemon, basically.
Yeah, it was like you got like your NAF starter and you did basic attacks at someone else's Polymock thing, and then if you won, you got that one, and it I don't know why people
Cool.
get so mad about it. It wasn't. It didn't even take up that much time.
It was difficult. I needed to like look up a guide, like getting to the higher levels, because I think there was like a skill like behind like or an achievement or something behind like getting so far and like past the first couple levels. Like I had a ton of difficulty. So I don't know. It makes me salty.
I like how
It was
Chet's like
Pokemon
completely
without
different.
the raising the Pokemon. It was just Pokemon with like your little pieces.
You just had them
Yeah.
already.
It
There
was
it is there.
Yu-Gi-Oh without the trap cards.
Wow. Okay. See, this is another thing in the game that I didn't even know about. So, some people in chat are like, they actually like this. Would you like it in Guild Wars 2? I don't know. I'm not sure that would be.
Eh,
No, it's way too late for it. Like
it is too late for it.
Alex is
hasn't
secretly
Poly-
like, I was in the Polymorph scene. I was a big deal. I was
Yeah.
under the pseudonym of RPG Alex Polymorph Master.
Oh, God. I mean, hasn't it even been removed from the Ratasoon map now? Like,
What?
or
I don't think
Oh,
so.
what? Where you could? There was an actual thing in the map.
you couldn't go there, but it was labeled.
Wasn't it just like you talked to an
really?
NPC in Ratasoom? And then you were playing Polymorph. It wasn't
Yeah.
PvP though,
Oh.
right? It was just against like an NPC.
Yeah. Oh, apparently it is still there. I'm just
Wow.
trimming.
Am I going?
apparently.
Because I'm going to continue streaming after this, and I might go and look at this. No, I'm not. I'm going to do TVT.
Do it. Go to Polymorph.
Or
You
maybe
need
I
pieces
will.
though to play.
Oh God damn
Yeah.
it!
You need your little statues. They were like amiibos.
All right, I'm
You
going to
gotta
rage
get your
quit.
Polymorph amiibos,
I'm
and
done
they all
now.
had skills.
I'm done with that. I rage quit before I
That's
started.
what it was.
We had something fun in Guild Wars 1 called Dodgeball, if you guys have heard of it.
I know what
Oh,
dodgeball is,
so-
but not what the dodgeball in Guild Wars is.
It just reminded me when you guys were talking of that, like how similar our communities are, because like basically what would happen with Dodgeball is you'd get all Mesmers, you'd strip them all, having no armor, put all your attributes on fast casting so you could
Is
cast
this a
stuff
TOS game, or
instantly.
do I have to be worried about this?
No. It
Oh,
was
TOS warning.
legit.
Safe for work.
So they wouldn't have any armor. You take one skill on your bar, which is
Right.
an elemental skill called like lightning, some lightning orb.
Right.
It would be an instant cast, basically, because you're a mesmer and you can fast cast. And then you just versus people in your guild hall in a scrimmage and try and like one shot them with a dodgeball.
Okay. So games created
yeah.
in your community.
Yeah, just like
so-
stupid things in the game that you create as a community. I just
Nice.
cute.
That's good. I like that. So there were those few
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that kind of thing happens now. I don't know if that's doable. I mean, arenas. I guess you can do that kind of thing in arenas in PvP and in guild arenas. But I mean, whenever I go into any one guild hall, they're normally empty.
Yeah.
I guess. Maybe that's something else. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Unless you guys have anything you would like to say about, if you missed something, or there is some stuff we didn't really touch on, but I think
I like Reader Geek's question. What's something you don't mind leaving behind in Guild Wars?
the opposite. Okay, yeah.
The
All right.
no dodge roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love dodge rolling.
All right, wait a minute.
D20
Right,
combat.
let's start with Peachy. So Peachy, you're saying dodge rolling.
I was gonna say dodge rolling. I definitely don't miss it. Well, I do miss it when I go back to Guild Wars 1. So I wouldn't want there to not be dodge rolling. It's innovative.
Cool. Makes sense. Alex, you were.
Oh, so this is what wouldn't I take back to Guild Wars 1? Sorry.
So opposite from missing in Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, what would you miss the most in Guild
What's
Wars
something you
from Guild Wars 2 that you
don't
would,
miss.
Yeah. that you
What's
would
not
need
I
to
don't
have?
miss?
What's something that's gone and you don't care that it's gone?
Yeah.
Oh God, where to start? No, that's cruel.
You can say whatever you want as long as it's nice.
What's something that's gone and that I don't miss? Come back to me. Come on.
All right, go on then. Whoa, Alex is stumped about talking about something. Go on. I'm being nice, okay? Go was. I wasn't. Blame Sam.
I wouldn't say gone like that. I'm glad that it's gone, but can I say something that I'm glad they improved
Yeah.
in the game? Okay. I like the fact that they improved the experience system so that when you get to your max level, your experience still counts for stuff after that, like masteries and things like that. I think that really encourages people to play content with maybe lower leveled players because they're still progressing while you're progressing. Like it enables progression for people regardless of their level. And I think that is a really good change from Guild Wars 1 because there's not much of a reason to replay content in Guild Wars 1 if you've reached max level, unless you're just doing it for the love of the game. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, you can work on your masteries and it feels like your experience doesn't go to waste. So that's what I love.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually a really... I don't think anyone had that system at the time when it came out. I know a lot of systems have changed to that, where you can kind of go to... And you can go to another zone as well, and you can just be lower leveled. I know you're still powerful as hell, but you're still lower leveled to a degree, and you can level with friends, and they don't feel like completely that, you know, you're just going to wreck everything. And then, like you say, you know, these masteries, it's more like the horizontal progression rather than the vertical, which is different now, and you can continue to level and gain XP. I actually wish there was more of that. I think it kind of made me want to have more than anything, to be fair. Nice, awesome. Alex, or like Guild Wars, like there's something in Guild Wars 2 that if you went back to, when you go back to Guild Wars, you're like, I miss this thing in Guild Wars 2 a lot, and I wish it was there to make something good.
Do you know what, the inventory system? The inventory system was trash in Guild Wars. It was. I think maybe to some extent it's going back and using it again compared to how much better kind of games have come with inventory management. But I just find it so finicky and small, and even like the Zunlai storage, just a little bit kind of pokey. And like Really Geek said in chat, that putting a deposit all materials thing in where you can just immediately just dunk it into your storage. And if you see, like, Guild Wars 2 inventory system is great. You've got your material storage, you've got your bank, you've got your bags, and you can expand them for gems, admittedly, but you know, whatevs. So it's kind of built on, again, like a relatively basic system that was sort of functional for the time. Like I said, playing Baldur's Gate 2 yesterday, and it's got a very similar inventory system. You've got a very small personal inventory, and then you sort of have to do a lot of kind of chucking stuff around and finding where you can kind of fit stuff, and then very little kind of, you know, external storage. So yeah, Guild Wars 2 inventory system, very, very good, I think.
Wicked. Okay. So that is going to be the end of our cast. Thank you, Alex, for that last point. Very awesome. Very, very good. Very true. And I think really that kind of goes to explain as well, and what we've been talking about today is that, you know, and the differences between Guild Wars 1, Guild Wars, sorry, good Lord, and Guild Wars 2. You know, there is a vast amount of experiences. They are essentially kind of very different games in their styles. You know, you've got this cooperative RPG, online multiplayer, NES/MMO RPG, whatever you want to call it, with Guild Wars, and then they defined it a little bit more with Guild Wars 2. And this is true. There was a lot more definition added to the game in terms of, you know, we talked about multi-classing, not something you can do anymore. There's a class identity. They've defined these things more. They've defined the way they want it to go. You've got this MMORPG experience where everyone's involved, and you know, maybe there's an opportunity to look back at some of the stuff from Guild Wars that was so successful. For them. But you know, I think there is just a lot more people playing the game now. I think, you know, a lot of the vocal people who even stream the game or make content or whatever played Guild Wars, so there's a lot of that still hanging around. And there's nothing, as long as you enjoy the game for the reason you enjoy the game, then that's fine, you know, and that's the most important thing that you can do, because at the end of the day, it's a bloody video game, right, peoples? Message, okay?
Gotta have fun. Yeah.
And there is some stuff in Guild Wars that I wish was in Guild Wars 2, but we can't have everything, people. And maybe we can in some digital world that we don't know about in the future. Sorry. Start going off on one. That's another podcast. But otherwise, no, I'm really, really glad. There's loads of stuff I didn't know about Guild Wars as well. Even though I went back and played it for like, I tried to play through. I think I played through 2. I think I played through a bit of factions. I can't remember where I got to, but I enjoyed it. But I did miss a lot of the stuff. Like, you know, Peachy's talking about dodging. Like, I was just like, good lord, V, no. And it was just like, I can't get out. I can't dodge. I just need to click out. I need to move over there. But there was some really, really stuff, like challenging stuff, like you guys said, like really difficult things. And I'm like, damn. Everyone's dead. And like, how did that happen? I can't just like beast this. I have to have people with me. I have to work with people, AI. And that's something I did miss out, you know, the fact that, you know, AI doesn't really exist. You have these companions in the story and everything else, which are good, but they aren't really that impactful other than resing you. And that's about the most impact they have, other than the story and the lore, which helps carry the game as well, and your story as the player. But yeah, I think I really enjoy Guild Wars 2, personally. I think we all do, and you know the old Guild Wars, which is still going. And this has been the first episode, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys. I'm very thankful that you're all here.
Very much.
And thank you for making it an easy first show, because it was bloody awesome. Really, really good.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely no worries. And I will bug you guys to join me in future. I
would love to.
Definitely. If you are listening to this on Spotify as well, or you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, you can actually, and you want the audio version, this will be available on Spotify. Just all you have to do is search for the Lightbringers. It will be available a couple of days after normally, or even on the day that it's been recorded. So if this is the first episode, this is information which is very, very useful for you. It's going to be the channel to go and watch it on. I actually lost it then. Is anchor.fm/the Lightbringers. You can go and follow it. And then you can listen to it on Spotify and a ton of different services as well. You can also support the broadcast by clicking through the links on the Anchor website. You can support there. You can support anywhere you want to. I would also please make sure that you go and follow all of these guys in all the content that they're producing. And before we go, I'm just going to ask them to plug themselves again. So GirlWars, what is your Twitch channel? What's your Twitter? What's all the things? And where do you do it? And what times?
So yeah, thank you Jebro as well for having me. I'm GirlWars on Twitch. Just go to my Twitch channel. I usually stream in the evenings, around 8 p.m. ish UK time. GirlWars and GirlWars 2, usually.
There you go, and that's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m.
Yeah, around about
Eastern ish. Nice. Twitch.tv/GirlWars. There we go. Alex, what do you do?
Hello.
Where do you do it? Where do you want people to follow you?
So you can find me at twitch.tv/RPGAlex, RPG_AL3X, until I decide to change my name again. Not changed it in a year now. It's a record.
Well done. It's all about consistency.
Oh, I know, right?
We were talking about that.
So I stream Guild Wars 2. I stream a variety of other RPGs as well, but just like everyone here, I'm a Guild Wars 2 partner, so one of the main game I stream is Guild Wars 2. I've also got some music stuff coming as well, so kind of like digital recording, that kind of thing. Hopefully be an EP coming out later this year, so any money from that will be going straight to charity.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, and Twitter's the same as well, so RPG Alex there. But yeah.
Awesome. And AuroraPeachy? Where? How?
You can find me on Twitch or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or all those places at AuroraPeachy. And I stream 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And I have puppies. Oh, and if you're Guild Wars 2, you're here for Guild Wars 2. Every single Tuesday is Guild Wars 2 Tuesday.
And if you want to see the dog, you need to go and watch the VOD, which will be linked in
That's
the
right.
Spotify as
If you
well.
want to see Miss Skipper. She was literally sleeping in my lap this entire 3 hours.
Dog's been there the whole time. Wow.
She probably has to pee so bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably people do need to go to the bathroom, so we're going to go. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've been in the chat as well, live, if you do want to join us, it is normally on Mondays. It will be every other week. I'll try to alert people on Twitter, so make sure you follow me at Jebro Unity everywhere. Twitch.tv/Jebro Unity. I stream as well. I've got to sell myself. I have to. I stream 5 days a week. I'm at school at the moment, so there's not as much as it used to be. And yeah, come and watch loads of Guild Wars 2 stuff going on as well. I'm pretty hyped about the 2v2s and all the things. At Jebro Unity as well on Twitter. And yeah, come and watch the show. Come and be part of the chat. Come and ask some questions if you want to come and ask some questions. Not sure what the next topic's going to be, but this is a thing that's happening now on the channel. And have some more guests next time. So everyone can wave if they would like to. If they want to wave. You don't have to. Alex, that was very excitable.
I'm a very excitable man.
That's true. Guys, thanks so much for watching.
Thank you for
See you next time on the Lightbringers,
guys.
The Guild Wars 2 podcast. A brand new Guild Wars 2 podcast. We'll see you next time.